very much, folks, for coming here tonight to share your stories about Garrienderk. There's a few people after coming from outside the parish, so thank you very much for coming. So, as we look forward to hearing your stories, and we're recording as the night goes on, so it will be there for the future going forward. So I'll hand you over now, lads. I think the first man up is Dermot Craig.
Hi Dermot, I'd say you have to remove the mask, I say.
I probably will. Probably will.
I fix, okay? All right, here we go. Well, we're gathered here in the Canon Hayes Memorial Hall in Effin, which is located just over the border from Charleville in County Cork, and of course we are in County Limerick. And with me is Dermot Craig, who is a native of Garrienderk, which is the accompanying parish with Effin. Dermot, you were born in Garrienderk.
In Garrienderk, I was, yeah.
And you grew up in the
detached house. In detached
house. In detached house, yeah. Okay. And that house is now going to become a community house for the people of the parish.
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully, yeah.
Now, what was it like when you growing up in Garrienderk?
Well, I remember, like they say, there used to be an awful lot of farmers and farmers working men, like, used to gather on top of the bridge, like, you know,
right.
Summer's even and Sundays, like, and things like that, you know. And they just often come down to the field just across from the thatched house.
Yes.
And they'd be weightlifting and weight throwing, like they used to be, and hurling a bit. They'd have maybe 5 aside, 7 aside, you know, the kind of way, like. And
was there ever
bowling in the road a bit, like, you know, as well.
Yeah. Was there bowling? I was just going to ask you that.
In the road, yeah. A bit, like, you know, not an awful lot, but a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, when you were a small boy, what games did you play, or what pastimes did you have?
Well, I remember, like, you know, long ago we hadn't anything much, like, when you wanted to go to town or go to town faster, you had a bowlie, a wheel, a bicycle, maybe with a stick to push it, or you might have a wire on it, like, that wouldn't, you know, just run along with it, like, get you there faster. And I used to go to Kilmallock. I used to do a lot of roller skating, and I'd go to Kilmallock in maybe 12 minutes, like, from Garrienderk to Kilmallock.
That's fair going.
In the roller skates, like, you know. And, you know, and, well, I did a bit of hurling in with Effin, like, and I'd say 1955 and 56, or maybe it was 54, like, you know. In a minor, I hurled with Tom Blues and Paddy Kennedy and Roger Mack and those, like, you know.
And were there many in your family, Dermot?
There was 5 born in Garrienderk, but I lost a sister. John was the eldest, Michael was next, the girl we lost was next, Paddy was next, and myself, I was last, you know. And
and where did you go to school then? Was it in?
I went to school in Charleville. But Michael now, I don't know, maybe John did, and I don't know that. But Michael went to Effin school for a while, so no doubt John did for a while as well. And Michael often told me it was through the fields, like they'd come up the railway line as far as, and they'd come along the road a bit. But when they came to the corner just up here, what's the man, Reardon's corner, they'd go into the fields. I don't know where the old school was now, like, but they could go across the fields, you know.
Okay.
Himself and Buckley's, one of Chris is there now, like, yeah.
And was there land attached to your house then? Like, was
well, I don't sorry, maybe it wasn't Buckley, it was Patrick Gorman. They just go with him anyway, I know. There was 35 acres in the side I was at. the place belonged to my grandfather first. Like I have a map of down there, like of what he owned it at the time, like and he used to own the corner house in Cherville, like but.
Which one is that now, Dermot? The corner house, where was that?
It was where the old credit union, the corner there, Lyons' corner.
Lyons' corner.
My mother was Lyons, like.
All right.
Yeah, her father had owned it, like, and but he was going to sell out. I have that in the paper too, like, and he had put it up in auction in 1923. But it didn't sell. Like, he might have been still running the business all right, but he was gone out to Garrienderk at that time. And they both died in Garrienderk, the grandmother and grandfather. But there was a lot of land here. He was an auctioneer as well.
All right.
And he had bought a good bit of land, like, and I have the map of the size it was one time.
And what was the other business then he was involved in?
Well, he was an auctioneer. Okay. He was an undertaker. Right. He was the corner house in Cherville, I don't know what you know, was called Bellevue Hotel. It was a hotel, but not a very big one. It had 10 bedrooms. And they did, I'd say it was fair days, buyers would come and they used to stay, I'd say, and things like that, and so he had a lot of businesses, like,
Yeah, it would be classed as a boutique hotel today.
Well, I suppose it was, yeah, that's right, it was.
And when did that close then, Dermot? When did the hotel close?
The hotel...
Bellevue.
The hotel was put up for sale. I can show you the bit of paper there. I have it out of an old paper. We got it. It was put up for sale in 1923, as I said. But I'd say he still ran the business a bit, like, but not as much. But he was gone out to Garrienderk farming, like, as well. But he died in 1928, and he died in debt. And there was a lot of trouble over the land and the family. His family, like, they were scattered everywhere, like, he had a lot of property. He had the corner house in Cherville, like, and he had a house down the Limerick Road, just down there, just below the electrical shop. The 2-story houses there.
Yes, yeah.
He owned the first one. And his son was living there, like, But he also owned it, or built it for another son. Do you know where the council yard is now? Do you know the shed there, like, that they keep their lorries and things on the way in, like, it's not inside in the field. That was built for an uncle of mine that trained to be a mechanic. He had to pay to him to train in Limerick. You had to pay that time to learn a trade, and he built that garage for him, and he never went into business, and they lost everything. Like, they lost an awful lot because the uncle that owned that never paid the ground rent or whatever it was, and Morris's had it for to store their lorries in it. It was a 2-story building one time. There used to be auctions upstairs and all, but the top half was only timber and galvanised roof, and they brought down the roof, like. But Morris's claimed it, like, because it was they were paying the rates.
Right. Well, I worked in Morris's.
You did, yeah?
Yeah, and they used to call that building the Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse.
Why, I don't know.
Counted the height of it, I'd say.
Probably, yeah. But they used to get cheese from discarded cheese from Golden Vale, and they'd put it up there, up in the upper story, the top story. And as you said, the lorries would go into one lorry would go into the bottom story. Yeah. But Jack Ahern, God be good to him, used to be the guy who would be in charge of the cheese, and he'd be turning the cheese up in the top store, and then when the cheese wouldn't be there, there would be grain there. So if barley came in from the farmers and the moisture content was very high, it would be spread out on the floor, and Jack would turn it every day then until the moisture was brought back down again, for use. But they used to call that place the Lighthouse.
Is that right? I
Yeah.
didn't know that, yeah.
There you are
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah. So, did you have cattle in
Well, yeah,
Garrienderk
well,
then?
my
I mean, cows,
my
sort of thing.
father was working at P&J Ryan's
All right.
in Kilmallock. He was the manager of the drapery shop, or maybe the tomb, but the drapery shop he was working at. So he didn't farm but the farm was there. I don't know whether they had it let in, but when Michael, my elder brother, when he became, I don't know, I say he left school very young. Well, we all did, I think. But he went farming there, But things went wrong with the farm, with the cattle, the cows. I think they lost their calves and things like that, So he didn't know what to do then, and he got a job. He got a job in the Golden Vale when it started.
Right.
My mother got it for him, by the way, I don't know, but he got it anyway.
Right.
But he's there now, and he was working at the Golden Vale, and he was getting so much money. He calls it was slavery. He said, if you were talking to him now, he'd tell you that. But and he spent, I know it was a year there, but after about 6 months, he was put on a machine that there was another man doing it, but when that man was out or something like that, he was put on it. And he could just, he does himself his own talking, he could do the same amount of work or even more than the other older men, So when Christmas came, he went into, I'd say it was Jim Reardon now here in Iffin, and met some of the bosses, and he said that he wanted the same wages as the other men. And if he wasn't getting it, that was it. And they said, no, you're not getting it. And he said, well, that's all right. He said, give me my cards, And another man from Mifflin, Latin Western, he's dead, Hayes, was working with him. And he left with him as well, for no reason. And so he was only a day or two at home when he went into town, and John Sherman was a good friend of ours, and he was driving for the Golden Vale, and Michael asked him, when you going to Dublin? And John said, I'm going in the morning, 6 o'clock or whatever time. And Michael said, I'll be there. And I don't know, did he tell my mother and father or not, or if he did, it was just the night before, because, he just, on the spot, and he went off to England, So
Okay.
that was that anyway.
I see. Okay. Well, thank you, Dermot, for reminiscing on your time growing up in Garrienderk.
Yeah.
And I presume you're still a proud Garrienderk man?
Well, I am.
Even though you're domiciled in Charleville.
I am still. It took me. Well, I was farming there then afterwards. We got married. My wife and myself, and we went in there. Well, I was there. I was milking a cow, and I went to school. There was only one cow there for the house. I was doing that before I went to school since 1950, I'd say. But I was farming then from about 59. My father died in 57, and about 59 I started. But of course, there was only one cow and no money, so I just got a few more cows, and I had only 3, I think. And then 60 came, and I went to England in the winter time, and an uncle of mine looked after the 3 cows for 3 months, and I worked for 3 months. And I brought home what I earned and bought more cows, So I ended up with 12 cows there, and I farmed there until 66 or 56, 66. We had 2 sons born there, Michael and Dermot were born there as well. My sons were born there in the house as well. Yeah. So that was it, I did the farm. We heard in afterwards that the farm wasn't going to be mine. I thought it was, going to be mine, but it was going to be Michael's that was in England, like.
I get you, yeah.
And so I got a job in the Golden Vale at the stainless steel.
Right.
And I worked there for the best of 18 years, like.
Were you there until it folded?
While I was there, no, about 11 months afterwards. They were going bad that time, even that they were going bad that time. I was working maybe 3 nights a week or 4 nights a week. I might be the only one working, but there was, I suppose that's what maybe brought it down. There was too many bosses. They'd be walking on the floor, so they were getting probably paid way more than I was. But I eventually there, like, they had offered redundancy, and I said that I'd take it. And they wouldn't tell me how much. I was asking them that, because they asked me, would I stay on? And I said I would stay on. It would benefit me. I'd get another year, like, or something like. And I said I'd stay on I did stay on, like, for a while. And then I was going to finish up. It was Easter, wasn't it? It was Easter. And I was going to finish up. And they asked me, would I stay on again? And I said, I will, I wrote out a letter, like a certain thing, that they'd let me know how much I'd get redundancy, and that they would give it to me when I wanted it, and they wouldn't sign it, so I left. And I was idle for about 12 months then, before I got into the bank.
Into the bank, right,
Yeah,
okay.
no,
You got into the finance then after
I
that?
got into that.
Just, you were telling us the last evening we met, Dermot, about growing up in Garrienderk. And I want to ask you now the history of the Craigs in the house in which you grew up in Garrienderk.
Yeah, well, it belonged to my grandfather, like, first. Like, I don't know exactly when they bought it. I'd say it would be around 1918, like, or something like that, They bought, they had a good bit of land around there, so he bought that place from O'Brien's. I'll say that after. I'll continue that after. So my mother was living there when she got married. Like, I'd say she got married around 35. I'd say I don't know what age, what they were, but we were all born there, like 4 boys and a girl. She died, Lord mercy, I said. And
what year was you born yourself then?
I was born in 38.
1938.
1938.
And had you elder brothers or?
I had Michael and John, and Kathleen was a sister that died, and Paddy and myself. They were the family. And so I was working, Michael started working on the farm when he was about 17, maybe around that, like, or maybe younger, like, But as I said, things the last time I was talking, something went wrong with the cattle anyway, so he got a job in the Golden Vale, like,
Yes.
So he went off to England in afterwards.
And do we know who owned the house before your parents bought it?
The O'Brien's owned it, but I have that down with Father O'Brien's. Patrick O'Brien owned it, and his wife, like, and there was a man working with him called Patrick Lawley. Whether he was a worker or a friend with the family, he was there all the time anyway, supposed to be. But anyway, they died fairly young, and there was 2 daughters. Well, in the question here, there's 2 daughters, and they lived in separate. They were sent away. They were sent to live in 2 separate houses. I don't know about anything about that.
And were they local? Was it local?
Yeah, one of them was Bridget O'Brien, and she was born in 1899, and she eventually married a Patrick Lyons from Effin. Joe Power would know him, like, you know, well. And they had a son, Paddy and Johnny, like, and they had 2 girls as well, like, but...
And we don't know what happened to the boys, no?
Sorry?
We don't know what happened to the boys, where they went.
With them boys, well, Paddy Lyons, the son, Paddy, Patrick was the father, like, Paddy Lyons married Maudie Flynn, a sister to my wife, but that person, he died, so that's the boys, they're all dead anyway, like, you know, as far as I know, yeah, they are, yeah,
and who were the neighbours then? Were there many neighbours?
Up there, no, I wouldn't know, but the neighbours in Charles, or in Garrienderk, like, there was Jim Kearney, he worked at the market yard, like, you know, and there was...
He was a carpenter, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, he was. And he used to do any welding as far as I know as well, but I'm not sure, but he was a carpenter anyway. But he made my first hurley for me, because I cut the timber myself at the tree, and he cut it out.
He shaped it after that?
He did, yeah. So there was roaches in Kelly's cottage down back beyond the church, like, and Mick Fitz, that messed him, like, you know, and there was... well, Pinder's Passage then was back further, but we'll go to that after. Sorry?
Yeah, where did Mick Fitz live? Where did Mick Fitz live?
Mick Fitz lived in the Turn, I don't know, who lives there now?
Simcox.
Simcox lives there now, yeah. And so he lived there, like, and he used to, what I heard, he used to go around the country in a horse and cart to buy eggs and sell them then, like, you know, they'd buy them off of the farmers and whatever it was. And he had, well, I know he had one son, and the son went away to England, and I think he was in the war because he lost a leg or a hand, I don't know, no, I think. But he came home eventually at the end, I didn't see him. He was old when he came home, and he's dead as well, like, you know. So I used to go into the house when Mick was there, and he used to be putting potatoes into the real fat, like, and frying them, like. I thought they were lovely when I was very young. But,
good for the cholesterol.
Yeah, good for it.
Yeah.
So,
and Dermot, is the house that you grew up in, is it still in its original state now? Or
well,
has it changed over the years?
It's the original, but you can say that it's in the original state. Like, it was always fairly good, and then when I got married there, in 63, when I went in there, before I went in there, we spent a lot of money, you know, making it look better than what it was anyway, like, you know, and so that it was very good when I left it,
right.
And even my mother let it afterwards to Ivor McCabe,
right, sure.
and the family, like, well, I don't know whether the family was there or not, but himself and the wife. And there was another man from Ballyhay that rented it for a while. I can't just think of his name. I know was there someone else. Then Michael put in, well, we had no water or electricity up there. Electricity, 1954, I think, like, you know. Came,
With
like,
the rural electrification came. When rural electrification came.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we used to be used to the oil lamps and candles and all that, you know. But other than that, then it deteriorated a lot. Then hadn't touched, and it was kind of falling down. And I used to be, it was belonged to Michael, my brother, then, and I used to be kind of giving out to him to either knock it down altogether and take it away out of the side, or do something. So he put galvanised on the roof, like, you know.
Right.
So that
and
was
it was thatch originally, was it?
Oh, it is, yeah. It is thatched under the galvanised, whatever is left of it now, yeah. So that's
so since 1938, or since the early 40s anyway, since you were a young boy, have you seen, or did you see many changes on the road?
Well, that's what I had kind of myself here, like, now. Houses that are no longer around. Well, the first two I'm going to talk about, they could be there, but I'm not sure whether they were knocked away, but Tommy Daly probably have to tell you that. there would be 2 houses there just near Effin Cross, whether it is still being lived in, whether the house is still there. Pat Fitz used to live in one.
Wow, yeah.
That was a brother of me, and he was working near place. And
It's where Bob Penton and Jimmy, it's that field there was 2 houses there in the old days.
yeah, there was 2 houses, and the other one.
Had 12 little rats were as big as foxes. The rats were as big as foxes.
Yeah, the other person that lived in the other one was Paddy Keating and his family, like from Charles, like, you know. And then I must just praise there that there's, I don't know whether if or Garrienderk they should know anyway, that there's a museum in Garrienderk, like of Eamon Sullivan from Charles. He have anything that you want to know about old machinery, farms or anything like, you know. So, well worth looking at, like, even, you know. Then there was one at Brewery Cross, dividing the Brewery Road and the Kilmallock Road. There was a lovely stone wall before it, but of course...
Yeah, can I interrupt you there now? Where is the Brewery Road? Where is that now?
You're going down Ballinaghowl.
Down to Ballinaghowl?
Yeah.
That's called the Brewery Road?
Well, yeah, it is going to Brewery.
And
yeah.
why... Brewery... Oh,
It is going to Brewery, like...
I thought it was brewery as in alcohol.
Oh, yeah,
drinking.
no.
Yeah.
And...
manufacture, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a cottage there, like, but there was a lovely wall. If it was there now, I think they might be fighting to keep it because it was lovely, like, you know. But anyway, who lived there were, in my time, were Ryans. I used to be in there very often. There was a Joe Ryan, the son, and they worked at Fitzgibbons's. I think he was a herder. I don't know whether that cottage will belong to Fitzgibbons's or not. Huh? Was it belong to Fitzgibbons's, the cottage that was there at the cross of Brewery? No. Well, I always thought it was. I always thought it was anyway. Like, but they were there, Ryans and family, like, you know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and then there was, I think it was Jim Daly's, that would be your grandfather, would it be? Jim Daly's, where he's farming now, like, and the O'Shea's were living there. And they were kind of herders for that farm, like, there, because I used to be in the house, like, I knew the sons, like, you know, and one of the sons, Peter, he was going to school in the national school in Charleville, like, and he was only very young, and he must have been up on the wall. He fell off of it, but he died so many days afterwards in hospital, like. That was that one, like, you know, it's like, you know. And then the next one was Mick Kearney's. That was just alongside the church where Farrell's house is now. Right. Was right at the side of the road, like, you know. And he used to work at the market yard, you know. And people used to gather there on a Sunday morning before Mass, like, and play 45. Right. They used to be playing 45 there, you know. And then I must mention that there were the double ditches. They were used an awful lot, like, for going to Mass, as Chrissy would know, I'd say, like, and myself going off down for a swim down to Grouse, and there used a lot of people coming for Mass, and for evening prayers there was always the rosary were given out in the month of May, and 'twas Owen Hickey's grandfather, you know, used to recite the rosary there every night, like, you know.
At the church.
At the church.
At the church.
Okay.
Yeah. Why was there a shortage of priests even then, like? Was there a shortage of priests, or why?
Well, no, I don't know, there wasn't a shortage of priests, but I suppose they wouldn't, whether they didn't bother, they might have been saying it in Effin, I'm not sure, like, but he used to say it in Garrienderk anyway, and of course the double ditches also were used, and definitely used, to go to the halfway pub, because I know, Pat Keefe, I think was his name, like, he had one hand, he used to go over there, and he was so drunk one night that he nearly fell in over the railway bridge, or down off of it, not the main bridge, down the wall. And he was stuck inside there. We pulled him out, and I remember we taken him home off down Bennacock. But anyway, then of course in Garrienderk itself, Garrienderk North, that's across the road from the thatched house, like Patrick Lyons, my grandfather, lived there, like. But he married a girl from Garrienderk, Margaret Mahoney, in January 1891. They lived in Cherwell in the corner house, Lyons' corner, and all their 9 children were born there. They moved out to Garrienderk, I think maybe around 1918, approximately. And they were farming there because I had a piece of paper the last day here that he had an auction of the corner house in 1923. He was giving up that, like, you know, so. Then of course, thatched houses in Garrienderk South, like, well, I had said that now it was owned by Patrick O'Brien, you know. Well, just another thing now, working times were very, very hard between 1940 and 50. I just an instant, Bertie Pinder and Jim Pinder, like when they were young, they'd be drawn hay with horse and float from Mount Blakeney, which was a long ways away, like. They'd only get 2 trips a day. And to avoid the bridge, like, you know, because the horses would be tired coming back, they went down Kilhan's Passage, that's the Kilmallock side of the bridge, and across just a little bit of a field, across the railway line,
Right.
and into Lyons', my grandfather's property, and down to their own house. They saved about 2 miles of a journey that way.
Cross country.
Yeah, you could say that. And also, I don't know for what reason, but it might be for weight and something like that. Circuses, no, not always, but they used to use the same thing to avoid the bridge coming to Cherwell, like.
Oh, of course.
Because I remember coming out the gate with the horse and wagons, like, you know. And then, of course, also between the 40s and the 50s, by the 60s, there were no horse and carts going to the creamery anymore.
No, the motor car had taken over in the tractor, yeah.
No, the railway was used up until the 1960s. Now it closed. I see it in your papers like 1930 something, but it didn't close for me because we had 2 fields across the road, across the railway, and on a Sunday morning, if you were bringing cows across or putting them, you didn't know when a train was coming because they went to Knock and to hurling matches and trains bringing cement from Limerick upwards, like, you know. But the thing about it was, if the train was coming from Cherwell to go to Limerick, you got no warning at all, like if you were putting it across, and at Effin Bridge, that's the turn to come down, like, you didn't know where they were going to go to Dublin.
No.
You'd hear them all right, like, but the next thing they'd be down top of you. It was all right coming up because there was a terrible pull up, and you'd hear them and it was straight down. You'd see them, like, you know. So it was very dangerous up until that time, like, you know. Yeah.
You're talking war years there now, Dermot, from the 50, from 40 to 50. The Second World War would have ended in 1945.
That's right.
So times are really tough.
They were, yeah, very tough.
Very hard.
Yeah. They were very tough, like, you know. Well, you see, I was young, like, I wouldn't remember it too much, like, when it was, like, when we were hurling, like, at that age, we had only a ball of cloth tied with twine, like, you know, to be as hard as we could, and sticks, like, it wouldn't be hurleys at all, and stick with a bit of a turn in it, like, you know. So that's all I remember about that, and as I said the last time that I was here, like, was they used to be hurling across the road in the evenings, workmen and, you know, farmers and things like that, just come playing things, weightlifting and things like that, you know. But I also said like that I had two sons born in Garrienderk, myself, Michael and Dermot, he's
Right.
there, in Garrienderk, like, and I had the last thrashing in around Garrienderk and Iffin, I'd say, in 1963, sorry, the day my son Michael was born. He was born the same day. He was born, the night, between the night before
Right.
and that, So that was the busy thing, like,
Yeah.
They were mentioned about who's in the photo, like they were saying, the photos I have, he has taken, snapped them, and when the names were on them, like my grandfather and grandmother is in one. The other one is my Uncle Dick and my mother, and John and Michael, and then the other one, my mother and father, and John, Michael, and myself and Paddy were in the other one, like, so that's, I think, all I have to say, I think.
Great stuff. Well, Dermot, thank you very much for that. It's insightful knowledge of local history in Garrienderk.
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic.
I remember the bad year in 47, like now, of course.
Right.
So the way I was delighted I didn't have to go to school.
Right.
That was it, yeah.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Dermot, again.
Okay.
Thanks a million.
Thank you.
The
Okay.
family that lived in the house before
Sorry.
Sorry, Joe.
the family that lived in the house before Craig's, the parents died very young, and they left two daughters.
That's the O'Briens.
That's your mind.
Yeah.
They left two daughters.
I can say that. But
Yeah, he said that, yeah. That was
the wife died in 1911, and the father died. Patrick died in 1913, and the wife died in 1911. She was dead before him.
Yeah. One of the girls was 12 and the other was 14. And Bridget married Penny Lyons.
Yeah.
And they had the son, Pat, John. Mary went away to the nuns. And Chrissy married Gertie O'Brien in Tournai. And the other sister then was married on Abraham. And
Can you bring up Joe a bit closer to the microphone there, so you can get picked up?
Bridget's sister did marry Robin Abraham, and their daughter is actually Ivy Sullivan above across the bay. Yeah. So that's there's still that family around. So that's what I know about.
Okay. So now we next talk to Christy Curtin, who also is a native of Garrienderk.
Yes.
And she's wearing her mask because, of course, we're in the COVID era here, and we have to observe government guidelines with masks, etc. So, Chrissy, tell us about growing up in Garrienderk in your household at the time.
Well, my father used to hold gambles, and he used to have gambles for calves and ducks and drakes and all that, and they'd have dances then after, and we'd be upstairs in bed listening to all the music. Right. Tim Lyons used to play, and then we would have a Saturday night.
Tim from the Glen in Charleville.
Huh?
Tim from the Glen in Charleville.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
Tim Lyons used to play. Yeah. And Willie Shanahan used to come down.
All right.
Yeah.
From Broad
Timmy
Street.
Muffrey, yeah.
Yeah.
And we used to have to go to confession every first of the month, and we'd have to fast from 12 o'clock at night, and if you took a drink of water you couldn't go.
That's right, to go to communion,
and we'd go up as far as Tim Cullinan's and over the ditch, but 'tis all closed in now. But when we'd come out we'd be starving, and we'd be eating the crabs off of the trees and going into Jimmy Pinder's field stealing turnips. And then we'd have to go on a Saturday over the ditch again, over to Mac's pub, and they had groceries, and we'd have to go there for the tea and the sugar and butter. We'd be eating it coming home as well. But
I see.
And then I was working at 12 years of age. I had to go over to Quinlan near Kilfillan to finish my sister's year. She went up to England. So I was so small the grass was covering me. And I had a little pair of Wiltons that I won playing pairs for 17 and 6.
Oh, well. Right.
But I'd have to cycle home every Sunday in an old men's bike.
You can take it off.
Can I?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I used to have to cycle home of a Sunday at 1:30 and be back again at 5 o'clock to milk the cows. That was a good many miles up to
Of course,
Kilfenna.
yeah.
And one Sunday it was pouring rain and I was waiting at the door to go and my mother said, it was pouring on the heavens. She said, that's a wet old shore. And I was so mad, I said, when did you ever see a dry one? So then we had to walk it up to Tiffin. We went to Charleville School and we had to walk it up to Tiffin for our confirmation for a week. Myself and Margaret and Bridie Leary and Nellie Daly. So
So you went to school to the nuns in
I
Charleville?
did, yeah.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And you
that
left-
was nearer to us.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And
Yeah.
you left at 12 then?
Huh?
You left at 12 years of age?
I did have the confirmation.
Oh, good, yeah.
We got our confirmation in Iffin, and we had to go around the altar, and I was afraid of my life because I didn't know nothing. And by God, the bishop passed me and he didn't ask me anything.
All right,
I was delighted.
right.
So all the people that I grew up with, the most of them are gone now. So there's an awful lot of new houses down our way. So we used to go up, when we were going to school, we used to go into Tom Jones's field and cut up there to the cross, and there was an old house there, Mrs. Crowley lived there, at Farrell's Cross, and there was a wall going all round. So that's all gone. And there was none of them houses there in the field where Murphy's and Harrison, all them are now. There was no houses there. But
And when you went to the farmers, you had cows to milk, had you?
I did, yeah. But we had cows. My father had a couple of cows at home, so we were well used to. So, and we had a goat as well, so we learned from the goat. I used to squirt them all going up the road on the bikes with the goats. Give them a good whipping.
I know.
Play garden.
Right, yeah. And what did you do for pastimes then? What did the girls do? The boys were the boys were bowling and they were playing hurling and football. What did the girls
They
do?
played for Iffin. My brother Mossy played for Iffin.
Yeah, but what did you do?
What did I do?
Yeah.
Walk?
No. When you were playing for pastime.
Oh, having cabbies down the ditch with it and blackberries and selling, one another.
Right.
Yeah, all that.
And you went dancing, I bet you?
Huh?
You went dancing?
I did, not till I didn't go to any dance halls, but I was well able to dance. My father said it was in my leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, we had great old times. We had nothing, we were happy.
Good.
And we'd do it all over again.
Right.
Yeah, for my mother and father. They were great people.
Right.
We lived near Owen Hickey, the Lochnamerson in him, so he used to come down and do jobs for my mother, and Charlie Culhane and Morris Kelleher, and
Right.
they're all gone. You'd miss them all.
Of course, yeah.
The Dinahys and Bankses and Gormans and Conleary and all them, they're all gone.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you'd miss them all.
I know. And when did you get married then?
I got married when I was 16.
Go away.
I was only like a cat learning, pushing. Yeah, so that's why I grew up with them all.
Right, yeah.
You know,
Okay.
so it was great.
Oh, good. And were there many in your family? Was there many in your
There
family?
was 12 altogether.
Was there?
They
Yeah.
all went to England except myself and my brother John. He went to Dublin, and my sister was married to Mick Buck and Effin. We were the only 3 left in Ireland. So the most of them are dead now in England.
Go away.
There's only 3 of us left.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, Craig and Hugh Jane, they were like brothers. They used to go everywhere together. They grew up together. And they went off to Lisdown once, and they were away for 3 days, and they never told where they were going. And my mother said to them when they came back, "Your dinner has gone cold."
That was the greeting they got. That was the greeting they got when they came home.
Yeah. But she didn't say nothing to them.
I know. Well, thank you, Chrissy, for your reminiscences of growing up in Garrienderk.
Yes, lovely place. We couldn't meet nicer.
Absolutely.
We had great neighbours.
Right.
Yeah, they were all wonderful.
Good.
And anytime we wanted to go anywhere, Jimmy Sheedy was outside the gate with his car, and the Dinneys, they were all there.
Right.
Wonderful
right.
people they were.
Great neighbours.
Yes,
Brilliant.
and that's the way to have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Chrissy, we'll be back again for another bout. We were talking about you growing up in Garrienderk the last time we met.
Yeah.
And how long are you living in Garrienderk now?
83 years.
83 years.
Yeah,
You've seen some changes then, haven't you?
I have, yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of changes. There's a lot of houses gone up there since I was a child,
Right.
and a lot of houses that haven't there.
Okay.
Going down. Well, my father worked over in Binches in Mount Blakeney, and my mother used to go around milking the cows, and my father used to till all the garden where my son and daughter have a house each now,
Right.
and he used to bring a pony around from Mount Blakeney and plough the garden with it. And I used to work down at McCarthy's, Tommy McCarthy's. They're all gone, Tommy McCarthy's. I often put a nappy in that. But I wouldn't put it on him now.
Okay.
You had Jim Carty and Len Carty and Tommy McCarthy's. They were in the one passage. So they're all gone now. And
are there many of your family living at the moment in the area now?
any of my family?
Yeah.
Well, my son and my daughter in the houses, in the plot.
Okay.
Donald built his own house. He built every bit of it with his own hands.
Okay.
And my daughter then, she was married to Joe Shanahan, and they got somebody to build the house. And,
Okay. Yeah.
and your man got broke or something, he left half it, so to get someone else to finish it.
Finish it,
Yeah. And at the back of our house, Nan Carty and Jim Carty owned that farm. And up along further, when we were children, there was an old house there that was belonged to Howard's. That's gone. And next door then is Timmy Culhan's, but that wasn't there. That's a new house built. And you had Tom Moynihan and Mick Moynihan and Mary Moynihan and Margaret, Mary Moynihan, Owen Moynihan. They're all gone, they're all dead. But Joneses have that place now. And you had Jimmy Sheedy in the passage.
Right.
And Keeves, they're all gone.
And was your address Garrienderk then? It was.
Huh?
Was your address Garrienderk, or was it?
Keeves and the Sheedys were Ballincolly, but they were across the road.
Right. Oh yes.
Yeah. And you had Fitzgibbons is at the corner, then John Fitzgibbon and
Right.
Mrs. Fitzgibbon and Joan. They had only one daughter. She married Paddy Barry. They're all gone.
Right. Right.
Elizabeth Casey's living there now. And you had Kelleher's then. You had Morris Kelleher and Mrs. Kelleher, Michael Kelleher and John Kelleher, Mary and Agnes, and they're all gone. Father Michael, he went to America. He was a priest, and he used to say mass in Garrienderk.
Oh yeah, when he was home on holidays.
And,
obviously.
yeah, he came home every year, and he died there this year.
All
We're waiting for his ashes to come home.
right.
So they couldn't bring it over the virus.
Of course, yeah.
So he used to visit me every year.
Oh, go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it was my 80th birthday, he sent me $100.
Is that so?
It paid my house tax.
Your property tax was paid up for you.
Huh?
Your property tax was paid up.
Well, he's always prayed for.
Right, fair.
They were great neighbours.
Yeah,
And Mary Kelleher, she's in Lowenbrough now. She has Alzheimer's.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
And next door, did up this way, Timmy Culhan's, that's a new house. That wasn't there when I was a child.
Right.
And Owen Hickey was my neighbour. And they're all gone. Charlie Culhan and Della. Charlie Culhan married Della Hickey.
All right.
Across the road was Pat Meany's. They'd have been Ballincolly. And Mike Kelly owned that now. And there's a house in the field belonging to Oliver McCarthy. And that's a new house, since we were children. And there was a house, Owen Culhan's house wasn't there either, that's another new house. And there was a house in the fields above him, it was Sarah Culhan's. And Sarah Hickey, she married Mike, Culhan.
Okay. Okay. You have some photographs there now.
Huh?
You have some photographs there now, Chrissy. Who
Yeah.
was in the photograph? Hold them up to the camera there so they can see. Hold it up to the camera so they can see him there.
That's the little house that's my daughter Marion, and she got her. That's myself, and that's Mary Kelleher. And that's the little house up at Farrell's Cross. That's gone now. And there was an old woman living there. She was Mrs. Crowley. We used to go into her when we were children. And after her came Dan Shea, and he's Mr. Shea. And Dan Shea's, they went over to live in Daly's, in Hammy Daly's house. We used to go over there to the attached house. Yeah.
Right.
And do we want it?
Yeah, show that one again now.
Huh?
Who's in that one now?
That's Father Michael Kelleher now, and myself, below my house.
Okay.
One more?
Have you got some more, yeah?
I have. I have a coil of them. I could be here all night.
Yeah, go on.
What year was that photo taken at the class?
Huh?
What year are you talking about that photo was taken and sitting at the wall of the class?
What is that? I have that too. These are all my family. I have Dan Curtin, Chrissy Curtin, Marion Curtin, Donald Curtin, Mike Curtin, Pat Curtin, in our house in Garrienderk. They're all grown up now, their families of their own.
Until when was the house at the cross? How long is the house at the cross gone?
That's my mother is dead 63 years, so before then. So don't ask me the year.
In the 50s, I said.
That's my father and the wine hay. Over in Binches, and Paddy Tarrant is there,
Okay, yeah.
and Paddy Driscoll.
Right. Right.
See the wine hay.
Yeah.
Up with my father up in the hill.
All right, sure, yeah.
Yeah. You can see it, that's my father. And twin sisters, Mary and Noni.
What year would that have been taken now?
Huh?
What year would that have been taken?
Oh God, they went to England when they were young, and they were 82 and 83 when they died.
They died, yes.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
that's my mother. That was taken over in a field in Yorkshire. She went over to visit
Right.
my sister. Yeah. Have you looked at them? That's my mother and father at our door.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, when you were working with farmers and stuff.
I
You were
did, yeah.
Yeah, around.
I-
Now, there were other girls working with farmers as well around the area. Did you ever get together and sort of socialise like a?
No, but they started coming to our house.
They'd go to your house?
Visiting, yeah.
Okay. And where would you where would you go
That's
dancing?
Mrs. Hickey at our door.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, let's see who else.
And tell me, would you go dancing or would you go to the pictures or would you? how
To the
would you go?
pictures.
To the
I only
pictures.
went to the pictures. We wouldn't lift out when we were young.
All right.
No,
right,
not
okay.
like now.
Yeah.
We wouldn't lift out at all.
Okay.
And
So you went to work with the farm and then came back home that night, is it?
yeah.
Right.
Well, if I slept at home when I was working at Catties, I'd have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning
Right.
to be down to milk the cows.
So dancing wouldn't be troubling you.
Oh no. Dancing with your legs.
Right. Okay. So and you go to the pictures then in Hurley's and in
Of a
Charleville
Sunday night, yeah.
on a Sunday night,
Yeah, only.
and nothing over the weekend, over the
No,
week
no,
at all.
no.
So what time would you go to bed at night then? If you're going to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's pretty
No, I
early.
used to get up at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I know that, yeah. But
Yeah.
what time would you go to bed?
Oh, about 9 o'clock or that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
As we gone down to Tommy Catties, and
Yeah.
I'd be going in the passage, and there was big old high trees there, and I'd be afraid of my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
And
would
the
you have
trees.
to get the cows in from the field, is it, or did you milk the cows
I
in the
milked
field?
them in the fields, in the stool, out in the wet and the rain and everything.
Okay. And would you get your breakfast then inside in the
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
farmhouse then like
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
And feed the pigs and feed the hens and chickens.
You, you'd be there all day then, obviously.
Ah.
What time would you knock off in the evening
I'd be
then?
there till about 8 o'clock at night, from 5 o'clock in the morning.
From 5 in the morning to 8 at night?
yeah.
And how much a week would you get?
I was getting nothing. My mother and father used to get it.
Oh, did-
I didn't get no money.
You got no money at all?
No, I never got money when I was out working.
And your parents would collect your parents would collect whatever you're supposed to get?
Yeah, my mother and father used to get the money
All right.
because they hadn't at that time. There was
Right.
a lot of us.
Right, right.
They'd make a bargain.
Of course, yeah.
They'd make the bargain.
For the year?
Huh?
They'd make the bargain for the year?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And after Tommy Catties, I went up to Mikey Welch's in Baker's Road,
Baker's
Charleville.
Road. Yeah, yeah.
I was there when I got married
Okay,
at 16.
okay.
Yeah,
You got married at 16?
yeah.
All right. Okay. And you never said, I'm going to go to England? You never said, I'm going to go to England to yourself?
Never what?
When you're milking the cows in the morning, you never said, I'm going to go to England, get out of here? and get out."
No.
Didn't even cross your mind?
No, I was a home bird. I didn't want to go.
Okay.
Yeah. All the rest of them went to England.
Except you?
Yeah. Well, someone worked at home before
I know,
they
yeah,
went.
yeah, before they went, yeah.
A pair worked at Tom Jones's.
Right.
He was up the road as well.
Okay.
He was, there's a cottage there, it was Tim Cullinan's long ago. And Tim Cullinan and Mrs. Cullinan, they were from Clonakilty. And Mrs. Conway and Jack came after that. I have a photo of her there. She was a clerk at the church. There is she.
And when Golden Vale opened up, did it never cross your mind to go working in Golden Vale, no?
No,
Of
sure.
course, you would have been married at that
I
stage.
was married in.
Right.
I had 3 children at 19.
All right.
I had plenty of work to do,
Of course, yeah.
looking
yeah.
after them.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So,
Okay.
where's that? Oh, there. That's Mrs. Shea. She lived in the little house at the cross, and my mother. Little house up at the cross where Mrs. Crowley
Right.
lived.
Okay.
You see, who used to live in that little house at the cross above Garrienderk?
Huh?
Who used to live in that little house above the cross?
Who lived there?
Who used to live there?
Was Mrs. Crowley living there?
Was that?
Yeah.
That
And
yeah.
then Shea came after them, after Mrs. Crowley.
Yeah.
She was there on her own. And then Shea came, and then there was Ryan's after them. Yeah, that's what I remember.
The Ryans were there.
Huh?
The Ryans were there.
Ryan's, yeah. They were the last there. Yeah. But Tom Jones's, that house is gone.
Right.
And my brother Pa used to work there, and that's Pa. He went to England as well. He worked at Tom Jones's,
Okay.
and Tom Jones used to be going up to town in the morning for a drink.
All right.
In we going to school.
Yeah.
And he'd be throwing pennies along the road, and we'd be picking them up.
Okay. Right.
And
yeah.
Tom Jones couldn't get my brother up to milk the cows, and my mother used to go up milking them. And Tom Jones would be saying, Paddy, get up, your mother is outside. That's the only way he could
Get up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And he'd go and milk what was left then, milk the cows what were left. He'd milk the cows that were left then.
yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There's all hen that time.
I know.
There's no machines.
No machines. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
So,
Okay, Chrissy.
well,
Thank you very much again
Yeah,
for
great old times.
yeah, good stuff. You enjoyed it anyway, you did?
Hmm?
You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I was as happy as Larry.
Good stuff.
Look for nothing.
Good.
Let's put all these in.
And was your husband working? Was your husband?
Oh, he worked in Golden Vale.
He worked in Golden Vale?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
He was there for years. He was in England as well.
Is that so?
Yeah, he was in England for years.
And he came back to go into Golden Vale.
Ah?
He came back to go into Golden Vale. did
Oh, he did, yeah. That's what he was last. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Miss, have I had a killer, right?
You have it, say
Yeah.
Yeah.
That old man. He was a great man.
Yeah. That's right.
A
Yeah.
lovely priest.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Steen did a story, I think.
That's it. Thank you very much, Chrissy.
Thank
Again.
you.
Thank you. So now, Dennis McNamara, maybe you might come and take the hot seat, would you?
Thank you, Michael.
Right. Now, this is Dennis McNamara, who, would you believe, now lives in Ballyhay, and I always was of the impression that Dennis was a Ballyhay man. He is not a Ballyhay man. Very emphatically, he tells me he is from Garrienderk.
That's right, Michael. I was born into a family in Garrienderk on the main road between Charleville and Kilmallock, and my father was a publican there in the halfway pub. I had, I must say, the privilege of being reared on, as they call it, Den the New Road, and getting to know all of the people that I had to ins and outs with during my childhood, and it was a privilege to have known all of them. I served Mass in Garrienderk Church for a good number of years. I left my I suppose I should talk a little bit about the history of the pub in Garrienderk. And the halfway bar was owned by the Pendergast family up to 1931, and my father and his brother bought the pub in 1931, and they paid £1,300 for the pub then in 1931. And as Dermot mentioned earlier, the years of economic depression after the Civil War and now the War of Independence, these were very tough times in this locality, and they were very tough times in Irish society. And when my father bought that pub with his brother, the owner of the pub said to them when they were taking it over, he would be a relative of the Pendergasts that still live in Garrienderk. But he said to them, if you're good at it, he said, you'll do well. But if you're not good at it, he said, don't stay here. And they, in 1941, the two of them had saved up the price of a farm, and they bought the farm that my uncle Tom McNamara had in Ballyhay, his daughter has it now, at the cross in Ballyhay. And in the years that followed from 41 onwards, my father did very, very good business at that pub in Garrienderk, and I came into the world during that period. He got married in 1943 to my mother, who was a visitor to the locality for a few days in 1942 or 43, and she met my father. She was visiting actually her first cousin, who was married to David Welsh in the New Road, across the road from, just beside the pub, and across the road from Harry Williams's. And she met my father there, and they were duly married in the spring of 1943. And my brother was born in a few years after that, and I was born a few years on again, and by 1949 my father was dead. At Christmas 1949 he died suddenly one night, and I suppose it's one of the things I've thought of all my life. It was a very difficult time for our family, and when I come to Garrienderk and I pass the place every day of my life, I find that I become emotional.
Of course.
The love I had for Garrienderk was extraordinary. I went to Ballyhay with my body, but I left my heart in Garrienderk, and it's still there. I've gone to, I suppose, being reared in the pub, I had engendered into me a love for Common Lucas Gael and what it gave the country and what it gave the people of Ireland. I felt it was one of the remedies we had after the Civil War.
True.
And it brought people together, and it brought families together. I saw it in the pub as I was being reared, and it was unbelievable what it did for people. But there was a lot of, I suppose, in the area, like from Charleville to Kilmallock, sorry about this now. I thought I had turned off, I'm sorry, terribly sorry. But in the area I was being reared in, I saw people from the New Road, as we called it, veer towards Charleville at one side and veer towards Kilmallock at the other side. And what made us apart from the people in Effin was the railway track.
Of course.
you know, and there was a great community here when I was being reared because of a priest that was in the parish at the time, Father Wall. People might have heard of him, and I remember him. I saw a photograph, and I come in the room here of Canon Hayes, and I was here the night, as a child, the night the sod was turned for this hall, and all of the people of the parish were directed by Father Wall to go to Kilmallock and escort whatever mode of transport they had, whether it was bicycles, some people had motor cars and more people had ponies and traps, but they all went to Kilmallock and escorted Canon Hayes here to this spot where we are tonight to turn the sod to start this hall. And that would have been about 1956, I'd say, or 57. And the hall was built in those years by voluntary labour. And I saw on the history of the hall, there was a book done on it a few years ago, and myself and my brother were photographed here one day with Liam Fleming down in Effin here, and a few other, Charlie Callahan I think was in the photograph, and there was a few others anyway. But if you have the little booklet now, you'll be able to see it. And I was very proud to have been in it and to have the history of being here, you know, for this historic place, because it was a wonderful addition to the parish, this hall. Talking about the history of the pub, my mother decided to sell the pub in 1959 and go to Ballyhay because I suppose we were considered children all of the 50s, but we were becoming adults when we kind of left the place, and we were becoming of some use to my mother to run the pub, but anyway, we left and we went to Ballyhay, and we settled in there well, and I've enjoyed my life there, you know. But I've always kept in touch with Effin and with what went on around the locality. And you know, I had very good friends all my life from Effin, like people like Don and Kelly and many more. They were all lifelong friends of mine, and many of my relatives are in the district, you know, but I feel that there is so much to be said about Garrienderk and about the district and the people that lived in the area, like Dermot mentioned there. When we were serving mass at the church, there was about 7 or 8 of us on the altar every Sunday, you know. There was only the one mass to be done, but we all came every Sunday, and Father Wall would give us a little mini lecture about how we should see ourselves in life. And I remember one Sunday it was during an election time, you know, and Father Wall, I came from I suppose, to put it bluntly, a Fine Gael family. Father Wall came from a Fianna Fáil family, and he used to be telling us about this great political party that Fianna Fáil was, you know. And I kind of believed it until I went home and I found out otherwise, you know. But anyway, I always think that there must be room for everybody in the world, and you know, in society, if we didn't have Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and all the rest of them that came on after, we wouldn't have democracy in the country, and that's what it's about. But Father Wall was a wonderful man. He taught us the values of the GA, and he taught us the values of living a good life in society. And I'd have to say that I learned an awful lot from being in his company. And he used to come down to our place in the pub on a Saturday and bring us up here to Effin in his car. And he used to teach us hauling over there in the field it was owned by Crimmonses, it's owned by Mike Kelly now, it was away in a little passage over there, and we used to go over there on Saturdays and learn a bit about how to play the game. And you know, he's taught us a lot of good values that we had. But the life in Garrienderk and being reared in the pub, I felt was a great foundation for me and for my family, for my sister and brother, because from meeting people and seeing the behaviour of people, whether they were drunk or sober, it taught us an awful lot.
Of course.
And it was a wonderful education to have been reared there. But the pub has very fond memories for me, and I often thought that later in my life that if it was never for sale when I had been able to buy it back in my life. But as they always say, you can't buy something that isn't for sale. But when later in my life, I never thought that the family that went there or eventually owned it, the Murphys, they often said to me that it was a lovely place to live and a lovely neighbourhood to be in. And I had, as a childhood, I had very happy memories of being in Garrienderk and all the people around it. And you know, later on, I said to Joe earlier in the year that I could name every house, the people, the inhabitants of every house along the road. I had a great interest in the people like the Buckleys down in as we used to call it, the Balnagow Road, you know, Bobby and I know them all because they were always in and out to us as children, you know. And when they went to England, he was in our house, Bobby was, the night before he went to England. And I didn't meet him until 1985, one night he came into the Russell Lodge or I don't know who owned it at the time, but I was in there with a few of the GA people from Ballyhea, and we were discussing something, and I said, that's like Bobby Buckley. And I went over to him, and it was Bobby Buckley, and I had seen him for over 30 years, you know. So, but they were fabulous people, great people. And who was down in Mount Blakeney? It didn't belong to you, Chrissy. Who was in Mount Blakeney belonging to you?
Just there I was born.
You were born in Mount Blakeney,
yeah?
Yeah.
I was 2 days old when I came back.
Yeah.
They were there all Jordan later.
Yeah. And you had a lot of relations around there, hadn't you?
Yeah.
I remember.
So now, Dennis, I'm going to bring you back now. And when you left Garrienderk and went to Ballyhea, crossed the border, the Rubicon, to go to Ballyhea, did you find a big difference in the peoples?
Massive. Well, you see, it takes you a long time as a child. I was going to school in Charleville. I got my confirmation in Kilmallock. And my friends were kind of from the town area, or from leaning towards this district. As we were going to school in Charleville, we had this cock Limerick thing always, you know. And my friends always tended to be from Limerick, you know, because I was a Limerick person, you know.
Of course, yeah.
And I suppose right through my life, I fostered that. Even though my children all grew up as Cork children, you know, and we'd go to matches, I suppose. I had a tremendous interest in what happened in GA and Ballyhea, and we used to go to an awful lot of Cork and Limerick matches, or Cork and their matches, but I wouldn't mind Cork winning if they were playing Clare or somebody else, but I didn't want to see Cork winning if they were playing Limerick during my years of being involved like that. But
so Chrissy Ring would have broken your heart.
It broke my heart, yeah. and often did, and there was many more as well. People like John Finton and all those. Even though I did Ray Cummins, I admired them all, but I admired people like Pat Hartigan and Joe McKinnon and a lot more. You know, so that was the way I felt, and that's the way I was, and that was engendered into me as a child by people. The the first 2 holidays I suppose we ever owned came from a man living beside Joe Power up here in Effin. Mickey Welsh was his name, and he used to come to the pub every night, and he brought us 2 new holidays one night, you know, and we were totally delighted with the two new holidays, because things like that were a joy to get, like handmade holidays, you know, that was made by this genius of a man, and he was a very nice man. But we had people coming in every night. There was experts in every field arriving to the pub every night, you know, and it was a great, I spent an awful lot of my time when I became, I suppose, 8 or 9 years of age, filling pints, you know, and I got to know the game very early in my time. And I suppose I'd have to say I became good enough at it, you know, I was able to do it. And every Sunday, there'd be a big crowd from after Garrienderk Mass, even though the pub wasn't supposed to open until kind of 12 o'clock. We'd have the people in at 11:30, you know, kind of, and there was people from Charleville would be at Mass. One person I remember quite clearly coming every Sunday was Jim McAuliffe. Do you remember Jim McAuliffe? He was a court clerk in the town. He used to come, and he had an awful lot of friends around the New Road, and they'd meet every Sunday at the pub, and we'd have maybe after Garrienderk Mass every Sunday, we'd have maybe 30 people, you know.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the new road. Where was the old road?
I don't know. That's what... do you know, Dermot, how it got its name? It was always called the New Road when I was...
Well, I don't know, I'm surprised, I never heard it.
Didn't you, Dermot?
No, but it was long ago, like...
Yeah.
I'm going back now to Dane's time, like...
Even
only double ditches.
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be one time, the Danes were coming out from Limerick to the Abbey in Kilmallock, and there was supposed to have a lot of gold and everything. This is only a story, and they said they'd come this way, like, you know, to come to Charles side, leaving the Abbey, like, the monks. And they took all their gold with them, like, and they're supposed to bury it in Garrienderk.
Yeah.
Now, and there was a teacher in Charles, I don't know what his name was, because it was an uncle of mine that told me he used to come out every Saturday looking for, he kind of knew how many paces from where the double ditch was that time and that, you know, and they would be looking for it, but they never found it. That's it there, I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't find the gold either, but I got the New Road being reared from school in Charleville, because you remember Davy Reardon that used to teach in the Brothers. He taught me in 3rd and 4th, 4th and 5th class. Yeah, and he used to always call it the New Road. Yeah. Why I don't know. But when we used to go further to Ballyhade, there was people there that used to call it the New Road as well. Yeah. So I don't know why it was called that.
Okay.
But anyway.
Okay. Anyway, Dennis, you're very happy in Ballyhade at the moment. And you cannot be tempted back across the border again.
You know, I suppose I'll remain in Ballyhade while I'm alive, but my family are buried over there, you know, so that's about as far as I can get to it, you know. So,
thanks for introducing
I haven't made any arrangements for an exit now, Michael.
Yeah.
But,
well, thank you for introducing a note of morbidity into the conversation.
Yeah.
And Dennis is going to tell us about the history of the halfway bar, as he knew it, where he was indeed born and reared.
That's right, Michael. I was born into the halfway bar. My father with his brother bought the halfway bar in 1931. It was owned by the Pendergast family from Garrienderk. Some of their relatives are still living in Garrienderk, but they were getting old and they sold the bar and the business, and there was a small farm with the bar, and they sold it to my father and his brother for £1,300 in 1931. And it was often said to me by my uncle that when they were taking over the bar and the little farm, that the Pendergast man said to them, if you don't make money here, he said, you're no good. But if you'll be good at it, he said, you'll do well. And they progressed to run the business together for the next 10 years, even though they came into it in a very difficult time in 1931. They were the economic war years, and when there was lots of problems throughout the English and Irish thing, and we were after a time, I suppose, not even 10 years from the Civil War, and we had the War of Independence before that, and people, the younger people, were burdened in their minds by all of that, coming into, I suppose, growing up, and my father was one of those people. When they ran the bar together in the 30s, they did very, very well there, because they developed a grocery business there as well as the bar. And the bar became kind of secondary to the grocery business that was there in the 30s, from what I could see and what I've gathered since. But in 1941, they had my uncle, Tom McNamara, he bought a farm in Ballyhay at the Chapel Cross, and he kind of left Lower Effin at that stage, and my father got married to my mother in 1943, and they ran the bar and the shop together then for the next 6 years, and they did extremely well until my father died in 1949 suddenly, and that was a huge shock to us and to my mother and to I suppose the subsequent growing up of us. It was difficult time for us, but they had during the 40s, which was the war years, they had an extremely big volume business there, and I suppose it was due to my father's business ability at the time to be able to develop the business to the extent that he did. But when he died he died on the 27th of December 1949. The things were changing at that stage in the country, because maybe we were getting a little bit better off, and things were changing as far as rural businesses were concerned. But after my father died in the 50s, the business contracted somewhat, for a few years, and I often thought afterwards it was due to the motor cars, and automation was coming in.
Move away from the area.
People had an ability to. Some people got motor cars in the early 50s, and they were getting them all through the 50s, like Dermot said earlier, like that there was hardly any horses and cars going in the 60s to the creameries, and to doing the farm work.
That's right.
So yeah. Those were the years that we'll say the rural businesses were dying because people were able to go to the towns. And at that stage as well, in the 50s, there was a huge amount of immigration in the country. And I can remember so many young people that used to resort to the bar when I was maybe 7 or 8 or 9 years of age. We knew them all very well because they were coming every day, all these people, and the next thing is they were disappearing. And they'd all come home at Christmas with new suits and white shirts, you know, and they'd be all very well dressed, and they obviously did a lot of them did very well in England, and I suppose the ones that came every year, I can remember them, some of Chrissy's family, you know, and some of the Driscolls in Mount Blakeney, and there was many others, like Dermot mentioned Paddy and Johnny Lyons. Now, I remember Paddy and Johnny Lyons coming to the pub for sing-songs, because they were two marvellous singers, both the Lyons as well. I don't know if there anyone here can remember that, but I can remember Johnny was more prepared to sing than Paddy, but Paddy could sing extremely well. Like, he was able to sing very classical music, and whatever was the order of the day, Paddy was able to do it. He was a very elegant singer, but well, in the 50s. The whole thing kind of contracted, as I say, and we found ourselves in a situation that the business had been not being as good as it was, but we were being going to school in Charleville then, and my mother decided to sell it in 1959, and we moved to Ballyhay.
Right. Can I take you back a little bit there now? The Golden Vale would have come into being in 1948.
Yeah.
The cheese factory opened.
Yeah.
Would that have had any impact on business in the pub or in the area?
It did. It did, of course. And it gave people more money, and it gave people reason to remain around, some of them. But Golden Vale, the employment in Golden Vale didn't really develop until the 60s.
That's right.
Yeah. And then it took off enormously. Right. And I suppose it was into the time of the Creamery Federation and all of that that developed. You're very familiar with it.
Stainless steel came on the scene.
Yeah.
And that was around late 50s. And then Dave O'Loughlin, who was also a native of Effin.
He was the first cousin of my father's.
That's right, there you go. Mm-hmm. He developed Golden Vale to practically what it is today. Yeah. Because it was his blueprint, I think, that they worked off of. That's right. To develop what's there at the moment.
He developed a huge business there, and a huge dairy industry there that gave marvellous employment to the people of the district. But the immigration was so bad in the country at that time that we noticed from about I suppose maybe 1953 or 4 onwards, all of the young people were gone. The people that would kind of bring atmosphere to a pub at night, you know, they were gone. From 55 onwards, it was all old people that were drinking in the pub at night.
Okay, and you would have been involved yourself in the pub as a young boy, yeah?
Oh God, I was, yeah.
After the death of your father, no? Yeah. For example.
Yeah, I was I was able to serve in the bar, and I pulling pints when I was only 7 or 8 years of age, you know, and I was mad for it. You know, I was mad to be meeting the people and listening to all of the stories, and like I said before, it developed my love for GAA and all that went with it, listening to the people and hearing what they had to say about it, you know. And I believe that my father was one of the people with Michael Collins the day he was at Garrienderk Bridge on the 20th of August 1922, 3 days before Michael Collins died. And my father was only 16 that day. But John Herbert down in the main road here, he's long dead now, but he is, 2 of his family are there, and there was a few others. I think there was a Culhane person there with them, but it was John Herbert that told that to my brother years ago, that he named them all up, but I can't remember now, but I remember that his father, old John Herbert was there, my father was there, and my father was sent there by his father, you know. So they often spoke about that day, you know, in the pub, and that it kind of it meant a lot to people locally.
Of course.
Yeah.
So you learned a lot about the history of Ireland.
I did indeed, and you know, I suppose I often said that I went to school every day in Charleville, but I was at a better school every night, you know, and in the evenings or whatever time I spent in the pub at night. It was very, very informative, and it was very, very developing for a young person to hear these old people speak about what they knew, and there was a wealth of information in all of them.
Of course, of course.
So there was my memories of Garrienderk are very, very are very sweet in my mind, you know, when I remember, and as I say, I passed there so often every day that, well, I passed there a few times, many days, but when I think of all of the people that I knew around the place, and there's none of them there anymore now, many of them aren't there anymore, and all of the names in the different houses that I knew so well, that resorted the pub and came into my life every day as a child. You know.
So you have nothing but positive memories of growing up?
Yes, I have very positive memories. But I'd have to say then, when I went to Ballyhay, it took us a little while to integrate with the new community, or to adjust, or whatever you like to say it. But we found our feet there after a few years, and I'd have to say very nice things about the people there as well, you know. And they were, in fact, my wife is a very Ballyhay person, and she's very proud of that, you know.
And those who enlist must march, Dennis?
Sorry?
Those who enlist must march.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's how it is. I often said, you know, that I met 3 very strong women in my life, you know, and I'm into my 70s now, but my mother was the first one, a powerful person. My wife is the next one, and my daughter is the next one. 3 powerful people that I encountered in my life, and I'm delighted to be able to say, you know, I'm 43 years married to my wife, and as a Ballyhay person, I just appreciate every moment of it.
Good. Okay. On that note, Dennis, we thank you for your memories again of growing up in Garrienderk.
Well, I have much more. I suppose if I get more, I'll get it into paper for Joe, and he can put it in somewhere in the book, you know, as we go along, but it would take a long time to go through it all.
Of course.
In maybe a very relaxed atmosphere with a pint shortly somewhere.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Sorry, Joe? My father was 43. Yeah.
Come here. More little relations had a lot of land and property around the place as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they had. Yeah.
Where was that?
My uncle, my granduncle had a farm in Thomastown. They owned, as they called it, 200 Irish acres of land in Thomastown, and they had my granduncle bought a farm in Ballinstone-Abruff, and the same family bought land in Croom, where the McNamara's are now in Croom, Andrew McNamara and the horse trainers and those. They came from Rathmarky, where my father came out of. I suppose sometime in the late 1800s or so, you know. So, but they said, as I told you, Joe, Paddy Kennedy told me that he was an old man that would have been a friend of the McNamara's from Thomastown over the road here, and he lived out the Cork Road in Ballyhay, and when I was going to school from Charleville, I was be cycling home, and I was calling to Paddy Kennedy for a chat, but he was old that time, and he used to be telling me about my ancestors, and about how he had great times with them and all that, and about all the houses that were in the Rathmarky Passage and all the rest. But he told me that two of my great granduncles used to run from Rathmarky to Croom and back to do farm work a couple of days a week.
That's a fair distance, isn't
It was a fair distance, and he said there was no bicycles, they weren't riding horses, they used to run, he said, from... and I said, I didn't get the running breeding into me, but anyway, they were able to do it, so...
Nice,
but they had... I often wondered how, I was saying that to Joe the other night, how people acquired the land then, you know, and I was discussing it with some historian one day, and he said that an awful lot of them that got the land because they were tenant farmers.
Of course.
And when the landlords wanted to get rid of it, they put a high rent on them, and if they met the high rent, they could own it after a certain length of time. And if they worked hard enough, or if they, I suppose, put enough of effort into what they were doing, they might achieve it, and that's possibly how a lot of our farming neighbours got their land back in the late 1800s, into the 1900s, after these landlords that way they got people to work for them and got people to be their slaves.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Who owns that farm in Thomastown now?
Foley's are in some of it, and sorry, Quilty, yeah.
Just to turn left now, in the other right.
That's right, yeah. Quilties are there, and they did 5 or 6 people get it there anyway. Declan Quain, I think, is in part of it as well, down further. And but he went. It was in the 60s he went away out of it. My cousin, he sold it and he went away. Actually, he was very friendly with Bobby was it Bobby or Pa was in Dublin? Was he?
Yeah, John was in Dublin.
John?
John,
Yeah.
Didn't see him to go into.
He lived with John in Dublin, as far as I can remember. Yeah. So they were kind of always great friends with Buckleys in Garrienderk, in Mount Blakeney, you know. So That's, well, I don't know much more about it after that, like, John, but there's more to be learned about it, I'd say, you know. So. All right, so Michael.
Okay, John, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Michael,
No,
Uncle Han. How you doing?
How you on? How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good stuff. Now, you're native of here as well, yeah?
I'm a native of Garrienderk, yeah. I'm living alongside Chrissy
Right.
down in
Okay. So
Garrienderk.
now, I'm gonna, you talk, go.
Well, I could, well, again, I was born in 1954, so I'm
Right.
kind of a generation ahead of them.
Yeah, right.
and
yeah,
Chrissy,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I feel
So you're a
Garrienderk.
different era altogether
I'd
from...
be a more kind of witted era, I suppose, to the degree of a more kind of crashing cars, more so than bicycles, things
Okay.
like that. But just clarify a few things there. Dermot was talking about a man that came around double ditches in the 20s looking for the gold. His name was Kelly. He was the school teacher in Ray's school.
Teddy Kelly?
Teddy Kelly, yeah. He was a man, he was coming out every Sunday, I believe, and he was within 20 paces of the double ditch. He heard from the monastery in the Dominican monastery in Kilmarnock the gold was buried. Fantasy, but I think every parish in Townland have that story anyway. And the other thing, the new road was cut between Garrienderk Cross and Thomastown Cross, 1750. And they called it New Road because you can see the old road, the Limerick Road, just come up by Thomastown and go up by Effin,
All right.
up by Brickfield, up that way. And the other road just come down Effin and come down Garrienderk Road. They were the only two roads of conveyance around the place. And in 1750, they just cut a new road straight over, and that's why it's so straight. And if you look at Google and you see the fields at either side, you can see the ditches lined up. So that's why they called it the new road, even though it's 250 years old.
Wasn't there something about the land moving or something down? Was it around here? No?
There was a bog moving, but that was over in Dromina.
bog movement, land movement,
Yeah.
or
But
around.
again, like Garrienderk, we don't even know, like Garrienderk, the name Garrienderk, it could be Gardina Dirka, or it could be Gardina Desha. So like there's Lewis topography in the 1840s claimed that there was a cave here, and there's a townland of the cave.
All right.
It could be the townland of the almsgivers, or it could be just the townland of the groves. So again, it's all in mystery and all in history. We don't know what it is, but like to me, you know, that Garrienderk is basically about the townland, which is about 350 acres, and it's about the people. And the people, like I was born a bit too late to meet an awful lot of the characters, but then there's some characters still around that would relate to the old people as well.
I know.
So one person, I suppose, that was in my youth would have been Mrs. Conway. Mrs. Conway was the clerk of Garrienderk Church, and she was very precise. Now she was living in the cottage above me, and alongside the cottage there was the ditch that conveyed people over to Garrienderk through over across the river and that, like, you know. So again, like Dermot and Dennis, they were serving mass. We used to arrive in at 10 to 10, and Mrs. Conway would just turn around and say to us, "Tinkler's time, late again." And that was her statement, like, all the time. Like, it made you feel very good, like, you know, because she wanted everything so precise. But otherwise, serving mass would be my first. Like, I remember the first mass I served for a priest was Father Kelleher, who died lately. He was ordained in the mid-60s. Now, he was the first priest I ever saw going around without a collar on him. He was going around with an open neck shirt. Now, he went out to Mississippi and America afterwards. He was one of the Kellehers. And it was refreshing to see a man of the 60s, like, it was just around the same as the Vatican II as well. So he was just a new modern age compared to the Father Maloney and Father Quinlan was another man here. They were very strict and very pious people, of course. So otherwise, like I composed some stories there about Garrienderk and that. I think it's down there with Dennis at the moment. Like, you know, there's very little written about it.
Right. And your grandfather was Owen Hickey.
My grandfather was Owen Hickey.
He was a very famous person locally. Anyway,
well, to the degree of, he was a gifted man, and he was involved in the Gaelic League and the RB and all that kind of thing, and the IRA as such, the Irish Volunteers more so.
Yeah.
And basically he took the last posed photograph of Michael Collins.
Yes, that's in this book here. I just happen to have that in the car this evening coming over now. It's there.
That's him there, yeah, and just the blown up Garrienderk Bridge alongside it. So he's a man with a camera, like he had a camera from the 1915 onwards. So he used to take a lot of photographs, but unfortunately a lot of them got destroyed.
Of course.
And the original photograph of Michael Collins is still here. I think, Dermot, you have even got one of them.
Well, I have the original.
You got the original.
The one which your grandfather gave
Yeah.
to
Give it to your mother, wasn't it? Yeah. So that's, you got the original. The rest of them are copies because the original was destroyed afterwards.
Yeah, it was
And
2
so,
days before he was shot, I think.
it was, yeah, it was August the 20th. He was shot on August the 22nd. So it was just was known that it just showed Michael Collins. Everybody knew where he was. So it was like Kennedy at the time, like, you know, wide open for,
Of course, yeah.
you know, thing to be executed, and which he was 2 days
Yeah.
later.
And was it your grandfather was in the Men of the South and that painting?
No, he was not married to South Island. That's Sean Moylan, and again
Right.
it was
Okay.
Dennis Brown, again, that'd be Dennis's grandfather over there. He was one of them. He was from Whelan originally. There was
Right.
most of the Whelan area, and that area would have been Men of the South. Sean Moylan, of course, was born in Kilmallock, but he went over to live in Whelan area as well.
I see.
So again, he did his bit for the country and all that, and then he was gifted. He was a motor mechanic. He was able to repair watches. He was able to do cigar chairs. He built piers down at our entrance. He was calling them the Swiss roll piers, because he had this design on top of them like 3 Swiss rolls, and that's a gifted man for his time.
Right, yeah.
But he didn't pass it on to us,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
to me, I suppose, like, you know, again, this Canon Hayes Memorial Hall was probably part of the Wednesday night gallivanting
That's
out
right.
the back window and hit the bicycle and get up here and not knowing what you were here for, like,
I
you
know,
know.
yeah.
You still made it your effort, like, you know. So.
So you were in the rock and roll era?
Well, I suppose, yeah, the Beatles area.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing, like, you know. So I went to school in Charleville, like, we always had affinity. For some reason, Garrienderk was always more related to Charleville than Effin, because Effin is such spread out. Everything is polka dotted all over the place in Effin.
Yeah.
Like in Garrienderk, we had the church, we had a pub, although it was unfortunately closed in the 60s. But we were always going to school in Charleville, then I went to school in Limerick.
Right.
And so I've been away more or less a lot of the time as well. But again, I always had a great affinity with Garrienderk, and I always had a great interest, because Garrienderk by its nature is surrounded by a big double ditch, and it's intertwined in more double ditches. And there's 9 old rats or moats in the area, and they're all within vision of each other. So it must have been a very old settlement here.
Of course, yeah.
For the area of 350 acres, that amount of moats and that, it had to be a significant tour area at one stage. So again, it's a matter of, as I say, Garrienderk is about the people. And it's a credit to Joe and the lads that have really brought us together, I think, for the first time in a long time with this Garrienderk development. You know, so again, you know, our lives is always centred around the old people, and unfortunately, it's one good thing by gathering around. But I suppose we're on the same bracket now.
Okay.
You know, so.
Yeah. And are you farming locally, or are you?
No, I'm working in BCD engineering.
Oh, BCD, all right.
Retiring, but I was supposed to retire 6 months ago.
Right.
So I'm an engineer by trade, so we're in BCD engineering for the last
okay.
20 years.
Right.
Before that, I was in Germany, I was in Limerick, and I was in Cork.
Okay.
You know, so again, you know, my earliest memory here was playing football, so-called football for Effin, and there used to be a priest in a Volkswagen called Father Ryan, and he used to be able to put the whole team of the under-14s into the one Volkswagen, and bring us up to Effin. I think we were amalgamated. I think he was a priest in Bulgarin, so he just put the whole lot, the team into the Volkswagen, and just drive us all over the place. Like we go back for a game of football. Like he was kind of devoted that way. But again, like my affiliation would have been rugby and Charleville and that. I was never good at the hurling or anything, you know. So otherwise, you know, it is a matter of trying to chronicle what's known about Garrienderk. And again, we're looking for the gold. We've put together a few things about Blakeney Castle and a few of the important events around the area. Most of it would have been around Civil War time anyway. And the siege of Kilmallock, Bruff, the triangular thing and all that was heavy around here. Again, like if you're thinking about the Garrienderk area one time, there's something like 35 farmers supplying milk to Charleville Creamery. Now I think there's 3. So it just shows that the way the rural population has kind of gone
I know, yeah.
you know, gone to the wall really, like, you know, so. But otherwise, it's about the story.
Right.
You know, so.
And you still live in the area?
I built a house down outside the home place, and the home place. So, you know, originally, again, like, you know, as I said, like the home place, the original home place was a thatched cottage, and there was a row of 5 thatched cottages in the area.
Yeah.
Now, by decree, they all faded away and disappeared. But the old farmhouse, like you see it down in Bunratty, the old Gunvale farmhouse, that was replicated more or less from the houses around this area.
Right, sure. Yeah.
Because they lack a stone. Like the houses that were built in the 1880s and the 1890s would have been stone, because they were able to bring the stone into the area. But before that, they had to use the natural product that was in the area, and so that's why, like in most of the old mud houses, there's always a pond alongside it.
Right.
Because there's good yellow mud.
I
And
see.
Garrienderk is known for is one person said one time, you rent Garrienderk by the gallon, not by the acre. You know.
And the name Garrienderk, you were explaining it there at the start. Is it the garden of the?
But it's the garden. The garden is kind of an area. It's the garden of the almsgivers, garden of the cave, the garden of the could be the fat land of the grove. Or it could be a grove as well.
All right.
Or it could be Garden of Disha.
Right.
Like Disha, like Bruff Disha. And that. So there's, like his Managed Joyce was really the guy that was doing an awful lot of research into the old townland areas and all that. Like, and I asked him a few times what it meant, like, you know, and there's
the other Joyces didn't do anything about the place names Joyces. They were the guys from
again, he gave it the cave, yeah.
Ballyard,
Joyce and Glenoshean.
Glenoshean, yeah.
They gave it the townland of the cave.
Of the
As I
cave.
said, Lewis topography said that he saw a cave here in 1840.
All right.
But the land, there's no real stone in Garrienderk. There's no real limestone or anything like that. So I can't see how there can be a cave.
Right.
But if somebody finds the cave, they'll find the gold.
Right.
So that's where the gold from the Dominican Abbey is. So,
Okay.
like we all did it a modern time again. We went out our metal detectors.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and Kelly was going around, all he had was a big stick. Turning around. We were to go with metal detectors and
No gold
no gold, no gold.
so far.
So far it must be there, but again, you know, it's Dominican Abbey. There is a story that they loaded up the mules and they headed west with them, and they put it within 20 feet of a double ditch.
Right.
Now, if you look at the old maps, the double ditches were only coming around this area. There's no, but that's only folklore.
Well, when Sean Clark MacDonald, the Jacobite poet, it was reputed that he buried treasure around Charleville someplace.
Yeah,
And
and
some soldiers came along and they got the story, and they dug up but they found it all right. But it was his manuscripts that he had.
Yeah. That was his goal.
That was his goal, sort of thing. Like, but they just burned them when they got him then. Like,
Yeah, Magillamar,
yeah. That's the folklore anyway. Whether it's true or not is another question, you know.
Yeah.
So, you didn't hold at all?
No, I never raised a stick in anger. Never did. No, I was more the rugby headbutting kind of a player. Yeah.
Yes, you did.
know. But again, Garrienderk was never associated. Effin was the hurling and football. They tried to make it a kind of Effin and Garrienderk, and I had an agreement with Paddy Kennedy, got arrested, that we would do the football 1 year,
All right.
and we called it Garrienderk, and the hurlers we called Effin. And we'd
Okay.
flip it the next year. The hurlers would be the Garrienderk, and the footballers would be Effin.
Okay, if you
Unfortunately, that year the footballers were walloped by Ballygran or somebody, and
Right.
Effin hurlers won a divisional final.
Oh,
So
that fixed the football.
that fixed it. So at that stage, then I withdrew the whole thing from FNGA. My loyalty went to the Charleville.
And did you go to school in Charleville?
Down to Christian Brothers in Charleville.
And to
then
CBS,
into
is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And after that then?
I went to Munchins in Limerick.
Munchins in Limerick. All right, yeah.
Yeah, my uncle was Father Tim Culhan, and he was
Oh, yes,
the
indeed,
diocesan
yeah.
organiser in the 50s when they were building the new school out in Carberley.
Right.
He was nominated by Bishop Murphy to be the diocesan organiser. So he used to travel around to all the schools and got all the schools to collect silver paper and collect berries and that he could get money for, by trading it in.
And Bishop Murphy was from the area as well, wasn't
He
he?
was from Marpatrick.
Patrick, that's right.
Yeah, so he was the bishop at that time. And,
Yeah. And he went to CBS as well before he went to...
He did, yeah. As you see, there's a plaque above in Charleville of
That's
some
right.
of the notable dignitaries around
That's right,
Charleville.
yeah.
Questionable, some of them, but
Yeah,
that's another
right,
story.
That's right.
So yeah, Father Tim was well known. He ended up in Fiona and he developed hurling in Fiona. And late Tommy Quaid's father, the Quaids, of course, there's Father Tim, got him into hurling back in the 50s and they won the West big thing in that time in the 54. He also was involved in Charleville Drama. They won something, I think, in the 50s as well, won the cups in the Charleville Drama Festival.
Right.
And he was well known. He was very friendly with the Winton Atira, Canon Hayes. That he used to be like he was the local organizer around this area for Winton Atira.
Right.
And so he was in coordination with Canon Hayes a lot of time over in Banshee. And so that's why there's all that, it's a big movement that time, rural activity
Right,
in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, and you've done local history, have you?
Well, I roved out, kind of history, because I was always interested in history, interested in fields, the names of fields. I was trying to find out if there was any local names of old Irish fields. And the only one I could find is on our land is called the Lissacawn. And I could never find out again what Lissacawn meant.
Right.
There was an old moat there. Max Joy said it is the fort of the crows. So somebody else said corn could mean blood as well, so. But there's no real, I don't think there's any names in Irish of any of the fields here anymore. All that tradition is gone as well,
And of course,
so it's a matter of, again, this is what you're doing here, is trying to organise and get some bit of a folklore.
Right,
like everything else, tracing family history and all that, you're always one generation too late.
Absolutely,
And that's unfortunate about it, But again, Google has a lot of effort in there, but again, it's what the old folks know and the old stories and that, so.
Right. Well, Owen, thank you very much again for talking to us.
Thank you.
Give us your analysis. And no, we have another native of Garrienderk again, is it?
Thomastown.
Right, okay. In Dan Brown?
That's Brown, yeah.
Dan Brown.
Yeah.
And Dan Brown was, your grandfather was another famous man.
He was same name, Dan Brown again.
Yes.
He was from Wheeling in
in County Cork?
County Cork, yeah. A place called Ballinatona.
And he's one of the guys here, is he?
He's actually there out in front. One of the men of the South.
Men of the South. The Men of the South, of course, was a famous painting done by Sean Keating.
Sean Keating, that's right.
In 1921.
Yeah, there was two paintings actually done. There's one in the Art Gallery in
Cork. Yeah.
And the other one is in the Arvis in Dublin.
In Dublin,
yeah.
Right.
That's one is called the Flying Column, the one that's in Dublin.
In Dublin.
Yeah. Okay. Sean Moylan is not in that one. Sean Moylan is in the one in Cork, right?
But he's not in the.
No, he's not in that.
He's in this one, is he?
He's in that one, yeah. But he's not in the one in Dublin at the Arvis.
All right.
He got kind of nervous that if he was painted, that he might be recognised.
Of course,
the English might recognise him, and
right.
He did the first one all right, but he wouldn't do the second painting.
Do the second one?
No.
Okay. Anyway, then you're, as I said, another native of Thomastown, which is adjacent to Garrienderk.
About a mile from.
And you obviously grew up here as well, and you're farming in the area there, aren't you?
Yeah, my grandfather came here after the Civil War in 1925. He built a house in Thomastown, and he had 5 children.
Right.
And I was born in 1958.
Okay.
And I continued farming. My father was a farmer, my grandfather was a farmer.
And now you're carrying on the tradition?
Well, I actually retired there the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, right. And to still carry on, is it in the family?
Well, it's at least now at the moment, no.
All right.
I think it's come to the end, more than likely.
Right, yeah.
Well, my son has interest in it. And,
I know,
but he's a solicitor, so more hobby farming, I think.
Yes, yeah. That's the trend these days.
That's the trend, hobby farming, That's the trend.
Yeah. And you obviously grew up in the area here as well?
I did, I went to school in Charlton.
In CBS again?
Yeah, CBS again,
Right.
And at 16 then I went farming. And
at 16?
Yeah, I farmed for 40 years.
So you've seen tremendous change in farming?
An awful change from the horse and carts, going up Deaf and Creamery. And then that all stopped, and it was bulk tank. The milk used to be collected off the farm. So very big changes.
Yeah.
For the better, I don't know. But
that's questionable, of course.
That's very questionable.
It is, yeah. But I suppose probably it would come down leaning at the side of for the best, would it?
Probably.
Yeah.
But
it was probably akin to slavery.
I think it was more relaxed long ago. Farming was.
Oh, good, of course.
It's very fast moving now. You have to keep up with so many rules and regulations.
Right.
That's the way it is. So you have to go with the times.
So when you started, was the milking machine at that stage?
Just coming in that stage. I remember milking the cows in the fields. I was too young, but I remember my father milking the cows in the fields about 1960s, 61. You'd cool the milk in the dyke.
Go away.
Yeah. and then you take it up the horse and cart up to Effin Creamery. But, that's the way it was done then.
Right.
Then we got the milking machine in about 1965. And then the parlour, the milking parlour then was...
Then Jerry Lyons got a hold of you then, did he?
Jerry Lyons was, yeah, I remember Jerry.
Yeah.
He encouraged us to put up the parlour, and he was a great man for farmers.
He was great, yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was a great man for farmers. He had great interest in it.
Yeah. And how many cows would you have been milking?
With 50 cows.
50
max,
cows,
yeah.
That's a fair amount.
It was, yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
for the time,
it's 200 cows now.
Oh yeah, I know that, yeah, but I mean for the
Yeah.
time,
Oh, it was,
like,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
out of cows, like, no?
Yeah. Well, this was, when I started, it was 30 cows, but I finished off with 50 cows.
Right, yeah.
It were the family anyway, so that was the main thing.
That was the main thing,
Yeah,
of course.
that was the main thing.
Yeah. And for pastime at that stage, what did you do? Did you hurl or did you?
No, actually, no.
Didn't do that?
Bit of athletics, all right.
Right.
Yeah.
Running.
Yeah, running, yeah. As we said, we were kind of divided the parish. So all the sports was up in the Effin side.
Right.
So there wasn't as much down at Garrienderk.
The railway line.
The railway line.
Put
You either went
PhD.
to Kilmarnock or Charleville if you wanted to
Right.
do any type of sports.
Okay.
But, I think
Would you have considered Kilmarnock your town or Charleville your town?
Charleville when we went to school. Probably when we went to school there, it was Charleville.
Right. And shopping town then would it
That's
be?
Charleville. It was all Charleville. It was, yeah. The Mark was the only time we went to
Of course, to
Kilmarnock.
Kilmarnock, right, yeah.
Was
The fact that your father came from Mealy, no, that would have nothing
That was
to
my
do.
grandfather.
Your grandfather, sorry,
came
yeah.
from Mealy, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'd say no, it was just we
No,
went to
just-
school.
that was the way it felt like, yeah.
That's it, yeah. And my mother went to school in Charleville anyway. She was Nora Daly from Maiden Hall.
All right.
So I suppose that's why we went. We could have gone to Effin, but again, the railway line was
Was the barrier.
the barrier.
Right.
Was the barrier, but it was. I mean, when you were going to Cream, you had to go to Effin.
Of course.
Yeah,
Right,
of course.
yeah.
There wasn't as many trains then. It was probably a bit easier to get.
Right. And
Get
Effin Creamery, was it Mr. Hartnett would have been the manager?
Could have been that stage, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't remember now, but
Right.
that's all done and dusted now again.
Oh, indeed, it is,
It is,
yeah,
yeah.
finished, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, the cheese is there at the moment, isn't it?
It is, yeah, the cheeses, yeah.
Jim Doherty, yeah.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's great, Dan. And again, thank you very much for talking to
Thank
us.
you. I didn't expect this.
You did very Now we have Nora Russell, who's niece of Brother Stephen Russell, who is famous around Charleville, around Garrienderk, man from Garrienderk, of course, native of, but very famous as, I suppose he was a personality
He had a fantastic personality.
of his day.
He was big in size.
That's right,
and a
yeah.
great big heart.
Yeah.
And people knew him.
Yeah,
Now, he was born at Thomastown Cross, where I'm living at the moment.
right.
He was one of 9 children, and he went to school in Charleville. And I'd say everybody in Charleville knew him. His sister was a nun in Charleville Convent, Sister Albis, and she taught there for years. Now, one of his brothers went to Australia, one died quite young, and there were 2 cattle dealers, Paddy and Harry, and they would have been known in the community as well. And Paddy used to live with us sometimes, and then he would live with his sister Mary O'Brien in Brickfield in Effin. And Harry lived in Ballyhay, and he moved to England when the Mats came to Ireland. He had no income, so he moved to England with his wife and family. And his wife was Kathleen McCarthy from the Railway Road in Charleville. She would be an aunt to Eamon McCarthy in Charleville, and they reared their family in England. And Mrs. O'Brien Brickfield was his sister, and then a little one died when she was quite young. So Brother Stephen, as we say, he was a great personality. He He left school, and I think he tried his hand at becoming a priest. And I think he went to some college in Galway, but it didn't work out. I think he didn't behave himself too good, maybe, and he came back. And he joined the army, and he became a soldier, and he entertained them with his mischief and his song and his humour, and he became known. And when he came from there, he joined the Alexian brothers, who were a nursing and a caring order for the sick and the dying. And that house was in Warren Point in County Down. So he studied there, and then he came to Cove for a few years, and then he was sent on to England, and he was working in, we say, a hospice situation, people who were dying, and people who were destitute, and who had nobody to care for them. That's what the order did. And then he was sent to Belgium, and he was doing the same work there. But he became frightfully lonely. And at night, on night duty, he would start writing poems, his memories, as it said there, the poems and parodies of Brother Stephen. He became lonely and he started to write. And he sent them to the Limerick Weekly Echo at the time, and they'd be published every week. And after some time, Bishop Murphy in Limerick, he was an Alpatric man, and he knew Brother Stephen, and he asked him to come to Limerick City and start a Simon community in Limerick. And he came there with another brother, a Brother Anthony Ferry. He was Italian. And there was a place in Charlotte Key across the road, I think, from Barrington's. And it was only a shelter, a few mattresses on the ground. And Stephen would go about the city at night, and he would see people in doorways, men drunk. It was for men drunk. That time it would only be a few drinks. It wouldn't be big drinking, but people who were destitute. And he would bring them in, and he would give them a supper. He and Brother Anthony, they would make the sandwiches. They would give them a bed. In the morning, Stephen used to talk about making a big pot of porridge to feed them, and maybe just bread and jam or something, but they had to get out during the day. And he worked at that, and he wanted to improve the situation, and he wanted to build something for them. And he started writing, putting all his poems together, and he issued, this is the second book. I didn't bring the other little one with me. He published them, and the funds went towards building a shelter, a house for them. And to make a long story short, the year he died in 1975. The building was being started, and it's in Limerick. As you go into Limerick from the Bruff side, it's on your left there before you come to the jail. And it was a better, modern and good, but it was still only a shelter for night. But now it has been taken over, and 33 people live there. It's their home. Nice. So you would see them on the street sometimes coming back in the evening. They're free to go out and have a drink, but they have their own bedrooms, they have their own meals. And I suppose he left a great legacy, and it was called the Brother Stephen Russell Home.
All right.
But he never saw it finished. He died in 1975, and he was buried in Warren Point in County Down.
All right.
And Evan loved him so much that there was a bus of the neighbours.
Went to the funeral.
They went to Warren Point.
Go away.
Yes, and he was buried there. He was very lonely, and he used to call my father and say to him, you know, Evan. But he was joined the order, so his body had to go there. But I suppose in the long run it doesn't make much difference.
I know, yeah.
And I don't think that there is, as far as I know, I don't think there is, the brothers are no longer there, I think.
All right.
But he left a fantastic legacy. When he would come home to us, he always took the first 2 weeks in January, his holidays,
Right.
because he felt the country people would be indoors and he'd meet them. He wouldn't meet them in the
Of
summertime.
course, they'll be all working, yeah.
And he would visit, I suppose he'd visit most people that he knew. He visited people every year, anyone in trouble, anyone who had a bereavement, he would come and talk to them.
Right.
And I suppose the people of Charleville, they were really fantastic to him. If you remember Connie O'Donnell,
Did you?
the drapeway,
Yeah.
he would go there, and if there were shoes or clothes or anything that didn't sell well,
Right.
Stephen would have the car packed up
Go.
and he would take it to Limerick.
Yeah, yeah.
Mordens and Murray's and a lot of the business people. I wouldn't really know them all, and I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but they were all very good to him.
Right.
Charleville was his town.
Yeah. Ted O'Riordan was a great friend of his as
Ted
well.
O'Riordan wrote about him, I think.
That's
He
right.
did, yeah. And I suppose he went out and he begged for clothes and food. He went around the schools then to try and teach the young people or tell the young boys about his life and what he was doing and what the brothers were doing. And he was there to try and maybe encourage some young lads to join.
Right.
And he was a big man, you probably knew him.
Indeed, did you? Yeah.
And he had this big cloak,
That's right.
and he would be up on this scooter, and it was too small for him,
That's right.
and he was a danger. He really was a danger, and people took no notice of him.
No.
And they had a house in Cove as well. And I had, his sister was, she was removed from Charleville to Cove, and she would invite us to visit. And Stephen would be home only 2 weeks in the year. And he would come to Shannon, and he would get in touch with Dan Dooley, and he would get a hired car for 2 weeks.
All right.
And that's the only driving he did. And then he would put us in the car and take us to Cove. And my brother was a teenager or able to drive at the time. And I remember one day he took the car from him and he drove home. He thought it would be safer because, you know, the man wasn't really a practical man.
Of course.
Not in that sense.
Yeah.
And it's just, I feel so sorry that he didn't see the work he did.
Of course, yeah.
He was the foundation of it, but he never really saw it.
Love to see it, yeah.
And that's a pity. But we loved him. He came to our house and he made us laugh. The only one thing I could say I didn't like about him, that he used to come into Kilmallock School, I went there, in the national school especially, and maybe sometimes in the secondary, and he would come in and he'd make fun. He'd make fun for the children,
I know.
and he'd make fun of the teachers.
I know.
And I felt, well, I've got to go to school tomorrow morning, and he will be gone. And that's the one thing, the only
You've
thing
been
I
taking
could
it out
say.
on me.
I did not like that.
Right. I see you have a book of his poems there
I
now.
have a book of his
And
poems,
You can recite a couple of them there now, would you?
a couple of them. He was very long-winded, and
Okay.
he's got great big words. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 verses in one poem.
Okay, we'll give you one then. Okay.
I'll just do the one. I think that would be the one, I think.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Okay.
Now, this is called, his humour, and he was funny, and he was, he was very serious and sensitive, and he used to talk about his childhood. He spoke about his work, but he was very devout.
Right.
And then he would always mention death at the end of his poems, and God.
Right.
That was very important to him.
Right.
So I'll read this and you'll get a feeling of what it's like.
Yeah.
I'm getting near to 60 now, and my bones feel oft-times sore. I'm feeling not as agile as I was in days of yore. My mind goes sometimes wandering to joys beyond compare when I was a barefoot gossoon in the pants I used to wear. They were a kind of heirloom in a long-tailed family. I was fifth by way of right when they were handed on to me. After years and years of hardship, they were given to my care, and so began the saga of the pants I used to wear. They were a kind of short long trousers, for the cuffs had frayed away. They reached just to my sturdy calves, so I had plenty room to play. I never wore a stocking then. My feet were always bare. I was like a desert nomad in the pants I used to wear. I could turn on catskin in them. You should see me climb a tree. I was more agile than the monkeys. They were only chasing me. And if I tore a hole in them, it did not cause despair, for already, like a patchwork quilt, were the pants I used to wear. My mother, may God rest her, oft sat up alone in an attempt to keep them tidy. She worked her fingers to the bone. And while I would be sleeping, she'd be mending every tear, with God's angels counting stitches in the pants I used to wear. Garrienderk Church was near me, and there I would often go to be talking to the Christ child like the shepherds long ago. Especially at Christmas, when he looked so cold and bare. Sure, I felt almost luxurious then in the pants I used to wear. When I was confirmed, I received a brand new suit, but I nearly choked inside them, to tell you all the truth. My boyhood days were gone forever. From then on, with men I should compare, but something died inside of me with the pants I used to wear. The day is not far distant when I'll succumb to life, and I pray that God will take me to a new and better life. My celestial vision is one of joy beyond compare, romping with the angels in the pants I used to wear.
Lovely, that's great, that's great. Nora, thank you very much, and thank you for giving us an insight into the life of Brother Stephen.
You're welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, Michael. While Nora was talking, I was reared beside Nora in Garrienderk.
That's right.
And I remember Brother Stephen doing a show in this hall one night, about 1959, 58 or 59. The hall was newly opened anyway, and he did the Chinese torture here for 3 hours, and it was unbelievable.
He would put himself in the part.
And it was a one-man show, and it was, it's so many years ago, but I will never forget it. It was unbelievable, and I was only a child.
He did one in Charleville one night about Matt Talbot, who did fantastic work, but who had a drink problem.
Yeah.
And Brother Stephen would be on the drink after coming from the army, we'll say, before he joined the order. He had quite a drink problem, and he took the pledge, and he joined. My father didn't take the pledge now.
Right,
he would call to your establishment quite often. But Brother Stephen took the pledge, and he joined the order. And you see, when he was dealing with the dropouts in Limerick and in England and Belgium and that, people who were alone, he understood them.
He understood them, yeah.
And sometimes he gave them a few bob if he had it.
That's right, yeah.
Because he knew the longing, he knew what it felt like.
Yeah. I remember my mother used to tell a story about Brother Stephen before he went away.
There were many, I think.
Yeah. But he was always playing tricks, you know.
I know.
And he was in the pub one night, you see, and I think my father was alive at the time, and Brother Stephen was after tapping his own barrel at the other end of the corner. At the other end of the bar.
I know, right? So, yeah.
He was a comedian all the time.
I think first and foremost he was a comedian.
He was.
The humour.
Yeah.
And, you know, calling to people, talking to them.
Yes.
And he picked up the humour.
Well, having known him as I did, it was a privilege, but for you to be his niece...
I didn't realise it when I was young.
Yeah.
Should I thought everyone had someone like that coming into them? I thought,
Yes,
you know, he was
indeed.
just ordinary. I
Yeah.
used to look forward to the
That's
holidays
right.
when he'd come.
That's right.
And then he was gone again.
He was a tremendous character.
He would write very often. He was great to write.
Yeah.
And
What
he
age was he when he died, Nora?
He was born 1911
Yeah.
and he died 1975.
Yeah.
He was 64.
Yeah, he was only 64.
And at the, I don't know if you know it, Dennis, at Thomastown Cross, you know, the pump, there is a plaque to him on
Is
that, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it was Anne Kennedy and some of the people in Effin
That's
that
right,
organised
yeah,
to
yeah.
put that there
Yeah.
in his memory.
Yeah, I put in the floor to it.
Did you? Yeah. Apparently that field
Yeah.
in the old days when all the Russells, his mother,
Yes,
Stephen's mother was Nora Toohey
Yeah.
in Thomastown.
Yeah.
That's where John Toohey lives at the moment.
Yeah.
And there was a big family of Tooheys, 10 or
There was,
11 I
yeah.
think,
Yeah.
there were 9 Russells
Yeah.
and many other big families around.
Actually, I can remember the bar quite well.
And they used to meet there at the pump, was the meeting place of the cross
That's right.
and the field.
That's right.
And it was lovely to see the plaque. The family really appreciated the plaque there,
Yeah.
not just anywhere else but there, because that's where he came from.
I remember the road not being tarred, and we'd say from Garrienderk along to Kilmallock.
And towards Kilmallock, yes.
Yeah, before,
Yeah.
I'd say it was maybe the late 50s or early 60s, it was first tarred.
Yeah.
But what I can remember about it was that there'd be about 3 motor cars a day due to pass, and you'd know when they'd be coming and going, you know. I mean, that'll tell you the way the thing has changed.
And your business was known where you were going and what you were
Yes,
doing.
yeah, when everybody
Now
was
we don't
doing
know
it.
who's passing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll leave it to it.
All right.
Yes, okay.
I'm doing anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Nora. Thank
All
you.
right.
Right, John. Okay, so we have Nuala Fitzgibbon from Maidenhall House. Yeah.
No, there's sort of a printout of the history of this.
Sorry.
If you can read it.
Right, so Maidenhall was the residence of Boucher Esquire in the 1770s.
He was a landlord's agent. And the homes then came in, what is it, the late 1700s. I
Yes,
think.
1770, yeah.
Yeah. And, no, 1780.
1786
Yeah.
is the home of the Holmes family.
And in 1767, the house was built, and they got the stones from Carnahill and Kilmallock. And Boucher then was living there, and he was the agent. And Holmes came in, and they rented it from him. And I think was he an agent for? Was there a fellow called Bradshaw? I think there was a fellow before Boucher. Bradshaw must have been the landlord.
Right.
And Boucher was his agent.
Was the agent, I get you. Okay.
And that's it then. And there was it.
And the Holmes family arrived then in the first half of the 19th century.
The very late 1700s, and they were living here in the 1800s as well. All through the 1800s they were living here.
Yeah.
Or there. And what is further down here? Oh yeah, this is only a story I was told by Katie Farrell. There was a lady going on the road, and I
Okay.
don't know if she attacked or whatever happened to her anyway. But the place then was called Lady Ladies' Hall, and then they changed it to the Maiden
To
Hall.
Maiden Hall, oh, I
Yeah.
get you. All right, yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
the road then, there was an old road going through the house field. I think it's the old road from Cork to Limerick probably, going through the house field and over into Tommy Daly's. And on the outside house, the barn below, there are two milestones.
Right.
So many miles in Limerick. There's 29 and 25 and 29 or something like that. They are probably off the old road, but they're stuck into the building of the barn.
Of the barn,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
yeah.
And someone said, I don't know where the entrance is. What was
Right.
it? Was it over from the Avon Road, or was it where it was below?
I know, yeah.
But that's it then. And well, that's the 1600s, the road going across the station going into Daly's. And there's what? There's a moat then. And there's water all around it. And the moat was, that was their old farm buildings long ago.
Oh, I see.
And they put in, there's a special way in it, kind of maybe lower water or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
And they'd go in there and they stay in the night and maybe pull in animals and that and be
Is that so?
safe. And that's it.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, there was a window then. There was a window then below him, what was by Nora's room, and written up in the window was, "I love Rosalinda."
Ah, go away.
And my son then he was only young fella, and he was trying to write. The glass collapsed. But anyhow,
Yeah.
there, this one, there's a headstone over in the Collegiate Church in Kilmarnock.
Yeah.
And it was, the headstone was put up by Rosalinda in remembrance of her husband, Godfrey Holmes. He died, I know, in 1835
Right.
or 1858 or whatever. And
My gosh.
I showed that I was there with my granddaughter, we were over in Lochgar, and we
Right,
came back to the
yeah,
Collegiate
yeah.
Church, and I showed her this thing, and the headstone, and I told her the story about her father.
Right.
But anyway, that's it, and what's that then? Much more than, yeah, much more about it. And the Fitzgibbons then came there in 1989.
You came in 1989?
I didn't, then my husband's father.
All right, yeah.
In 1979.
79, is it? Yeah.
79, mistake.
29.
What?
29.
1929, sorry Tommy. And
Yeah.
he came from Milford.
Okay, right.
And that's it then. And I suppose, I don't know more, I suppose he built the place up then.
Yeah. Stones. And where was the original entrance, Nora, to
I haven't a clue.
You don't
We
know?
said the main road before was going across the house field, whether it was over on the Avon Road or where it is now, I couldn't tell you.
Right, okay.
But there's no account of that.
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, and there's a fella living there, then Godfrey Holmes. He was there when John's father bought it. But the story about him was, I suppose he died in it, that's it.
Yeah.
The story was, I heard it from Tommy's sister. He'd go for a short walk to Croom and back. And there's another thing then, when we started doing the silage, there was Cagney, I think was the name of him, he was an old man, but he remembered Godfrey going to the church above him.
Right, yeah.
And the fellows throwing stones or something.
Go away.
You see, and
Yeah.
that's it then. And when he died then, he had a brother, I think, over in England. He was managing, he was a lawyer or whatever. But when he died, his housekeeper, Miss Cox, that she was living in the place.
All right, yeah.
She had to get out of it when she was sold.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know more than about it.
Yeah. That's lovely. And how long are you there now, Nora?
1965.
1965.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there was dry cattle there before that.
Is that so?
And then there was sucklers, and there was not here. There
Right,
were here the
yeah.
dry cattle.
I
They were
know,
fine
that's
cattle. They were bought, and they made the same price at the end of the year.
Right.
So then we got sucklers, and the calves were much at the end of that year.
Right, yeah.
And because there were sucklers, was it 16 and with 15, cows were in calf and a lame.
Right.
So we started in from there.
Ah, gotcha.
And though the calves are very cheap that time then.
Of course, yeah.
And the calves are so cheap that some of the farms are letting at the mat. So
I
we
know.
bought heifer calves and reared them, and that's it then. And
Right, yeah.
moved on from there.
I see. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I know no more. And was the silage then, whenever that came in.
Yeah.
We saved hay. I know whether we saved hay once or not. Once. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was we were on one of the fields. The hay was baled, and just cows or someone baled hay, and then I'd forgotten how to stack the bales. And was it the knots down, the thatch down, and the knots out. So some fellow then that was doing that, he told, oh yeah, there's a cray living behind Blacksmith's Lane. And he said to me, Lisa, I said, we don't ever say, hey, well, you saved it this year, and you didn't know how to stack the bales.
Right.
You know, craze.
I know, yeah,
It was back the Newtown Road.
Yes, behind the golf club there, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
There, yeah.
And it's just right in Yorkshire then.
Right, yeah.
And that's it.
That's the great. And how many family have you, no?
There's 3 boys and 3 girls.
3 boys and 3 girls, all right.
And there's one fellow in Sweden, and there's another fellow in Turkey.
Right.
And Petrus farming.
Ah, lovely. Right,
And the girls then are they're in Ireland.
Right,
They're married.
yeah. Well, you're in a very historic house anyway in Maidenhall.
What?
You're in a very historic house in Maidenhall.
Sure, if you're in yeah.
No, you're coming down from down through the centuries. I mean, from the time Bocher was in the 1770s, and then the Holmes is in 1786, and then down to the 19th century, and now the Fitzgibbons.
Oh yes, he paid is it 2,500 for John's father.
All right.
Yeah, and that was in 19 what?
29.
What?
1929.
1929.
29.
Yeah.
Yeah. By gosh. That's it.
Yes, there was a course, local coursing club, Charlie and Garrienderk coursing club, and I was at Newell's the other night, and I was looking in the Nora diary there from 1949, and all the local results were on it. The names of the cows were on it.
Right. Go away.
The information that they did.
Yeah.
But there's something like 7 or 8 continuous years of diaries there. And it's beautiful to see.
Yeah.
I went to one coursing club in Charlie.
That's right, yeah. Yes.
Never again would I go to one.
Would you?
It's the very same as but the poor hare came out and he screamed in terror and the dogs
I know,
put him in hand.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
It was very bad.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to see it anymore.
No, that's true. Well, Nora, you're still living in a very historic house in Maidenhall, and thank you very much for giving us an insight into the history of it. Thank you very much. Hi, Tom.
Mike, how are you keeping?
Not too bad,
Now, what I have here is I have a map that Nora Fitzgibbon's son gave me years and years ago, and he had gone to the bother of tracing the inhabitants of Garrienderk about 120 years ago.
Right.
So I'll just give you a quick rundown on the names.
Do please, yeah.
And I won't take very long because when I've finished, I also have here a McCarthy family tree. It's
Okay.
Pat McCarthy there from Garrienderk.
Right.
And the family tree was done by Tom, your brother, wasn't it? Tommy, your brother, did the family tree. Yeah. And it's quite an extensive one, but what I'll try to do is synopsize it and give it to Joe, and you might include it in the book after. But anyway, without my glasses, I'll have a go at this. Nora Fitzgibbon's place anyway is down here. Susan Holmes, who was the lady that you described there. Susan Holmes was. Yes.
Well, there's another thing here then. do you know the high bridge over?
Yes.
Why is that called Daffy's Bridge?
Oh, that's the one going over the railway?
Yeah.
Daffy's Bridge. It has been called several different names over the years.
But this is writing by Nora, it comes out some paper. He was Jim McCarthy.
Yeah.
And I suppose he was away from London and he was describing Charles when he came back.
Yes.
And it up the land, Harrison's place. There's 29 houses a bit there. Was it from English soldiers or something?
Oh yes, that's right. They were built by the British Legion.
Right?
They were built by the British Legion for the soldiers from the First World War. Now, I'll go to Craig's next. You had it on anyway. I have a James O'Brien in Yearland. We'll say south of the. Do you know where Michael's place is now? Yeah, James O'Brien. Now there's a Peter White. Dermot will know where it is, and Penn McCarthy would know as well. Peter White is situated here, just at the Charleville side of Garrienderk Chapter. It's now Jimmy Pendle's land. And where it's shown here is opposite Dermot Kelly's. No, exactly. And Peter White, none of us ever heard of him, I'd say, did we?
Okay.
Peter White, did you ever hear of Peter White?
I never heard of it, but there was a house down, we'll say, if you went down Pendle's Passage and turned into the left, would be between there and Mick Fix's, but it was down the field.
Yes.
There was a house there.
Yes, it's on the map.
Jimmy Pendle told me it's gone.
It's on the map, and I know where it is. Yes. Now, we had William Carney, he was the man you said was walking in the market yard. It shows him here. I remember the house, it was a long thatched house. Paddy remember it too, don't you, Paddy? There were two little men there, small men. I thought there was two of them, was there only one? I remember him anyway when I was very small.
Where was that, Tom?
That's just where Farrell's house is now. Where John Farrell's house is. Let's see now. Next I have Patrick Jones, and that's on the Effin Road, we'll say. Patrick Jones, still owned by Patrick Jones. But then on the Effin side of that, before you come to the railway bridge, you all know where that is. There were two Joneses, Edward Jones and John Jones.
What about the Joneses, the stone house by Oshkinnell?
They were the same Joneses, same family back along.
And there's a very old, they're here in London, the Joneses, there's a very old headstone over the cemetery around the community church.
Yes. But one that I used to hear when I was a small child was Johnny Jones was the one closest, we'll say, to the railway line. And his wife always reckoned that when he died, that he was coming back to say hello. So if she heard a creak or a door in a windy night, she'd turn around and she'd say, "Come in, Johnny Jones." So he was welcome back anyway. He must have been well liked anyway. Now there's another place there now. I was trying to ring Charlie Callahan. You know Charlie?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get him this evening. But right across from his place, there were two little girls we met here tonight, Nola. They were the grandchildren of Tom McCarthy, different Tom McCarthy, the Cove McCarthy. But I told them what their grandfather's nickname was.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know.
Right.
And I said, nobody will tell you anybody's nickname, only Tom Daly will tell everybody's nickname. But we won't say anything about his own nickname. Anyway, that was owned by a John O'Donnell. Does anybody have any clue who that John O'Donnell was? Dermot, would you have any clue?
No.
Yeah, anyway, that's a little townland. It's called Commons. It was only 15 acres and one road. And who owns it now is Finbar McCarthy. Do you know Finbar? McCarthy, Paddy. It was Tom's son, we'll say. He owns it now. Right, that's it on. Now, to come to my own place, my grandmother's name was Anna Mannix, and her father was Michael Mannix. So he owned, we'll say, Garrienderk, where I am now, next to Nora Fitzgibbon. And as well as that, his brother owned Daniel Mannix, owned Paddy Jones across the road from me. You all know that place.
Would they have been any relation of the Archbishop Mannix's people? Yeah. All in one family.
And Mannix, my grandmother, would have been a cousin of the Archbishop.
Nice.
Yeah. And I was an altar by myself.
Good stuff. You'd never think it, but anyway,
the place below there will say Paddy North, you know, it was Jones as well. That was Michael Mannix's as well. Now, to Gerald Fitzgibbon that gave me this, by the way, years ago. And he did a lot of work on it. Oh yes, as well as that, not to be forgotten, David Foley, a lot of you, Dennis will remember him well. David Foley lived up the little entrance next to the church, next to Fells.
Right.
And he was a lovely old man. You remember him, Paddy, as well, don't you? David Foley. Oh, yeah. And he had 44 acres of land, but 4 acres were taken up by double banks, double ditches. He was always complaining. But Pat Fitz, the man that you were asking me about, used to tell me the story that David Foley and himself were great friends, and he was always complaining, you see, because farmers do that, and so he was always complaining about lack of land and wealth and so on, you know. And Pat would say to him, why don't you sell the place and go to town, Charlotte? Why don't you go? I would, I suppose I would. But what would I do with my things? That was his implements and so on. He has no things, Pat. He has no, I know what he's talking about. But he just didn't want to move across, you know. But that was David Foley. But the Foleys have been there for ages and ages. We didn't know any more of them. So that's the immediate area now. That, But we could put more work into it and we'd find more places.
I know.
So we have another.
There was a lap below and the old road was there. And it was about that size.
Yeah.
And there's a key in about that length, and there's another yank visiting John's father. Who's an old John? This was like a key going to Alcatraz.
Right, well that brings us to the end of it, I think, for the moment. At least, isn't it? That's okay, Joseph.
Yeah, perfect. I just want to thank everyone that came, lads, and for their contribution. It is brilliant to have this gone forward, and it is in time to come. People will really appreciate what you did tonight. So, thank you very much for coming here. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Charleville people that came out, and the belly here, and the locals. Thank you very much. And so we'll break now and we'll have a cup of tea.